going on, everybody? Welcome to the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast. We thank you guys for tuning in. Happy Saturday. I know we have been off for a little bit. Brandon had to go on a honeymoon. Yours. Like, does that have to happen after a wedding anymore? Like, isn't that just like some old pastime tradition? Can we drop that already? Goodness gracious. I had to wait a week to vent. I'm over here just dying inside, wanting to scream about things. And you're out there freaking playing with camels. There's no camels in Hawaii.
There's no camels there. No.
There's no camels in Hawaii.
No.
There might be.
You
never know.
There were little goats at our
Yeah, was that
hotel.
goat peeing on the tree? What was he doing?
They were eating leaves. I don't
What a
think
miserable existence it must be to be a goat.
There was chickens.
Do goats eat chickens?
No.
I
There
don't
was
think so.
we were trying to figure out what they were. I think they were some type of mongoose, but they were like as big as a squirrel. A long tail like a squirrel, but no like fur.
What? What is a mongoose?
I think they were like some type of mongoose. I don't know.
What even is
We
that?
were trying we were trying to figure out what it was. It freaked Erin out the first time she saw it because it came
Definitely.
across the kind of like a mongoose, but it didn't have that it really didn't have much hair. I couldn't get a picture of it. Yeah, I think it was kind of like a mongoose.
So why is it called a mongoose if it doesn't even look like a goose?
If you type mongoose and then it comes up with like the other words that you could put, it comes up with Hawaii. So if you look up mongoose Hawaii, then
It's
you
like a
can
prairie
kinda see.
dog.
It's like a prairie dog. Yeah.
Mixed with the
Mixed with, like,
thing with that's a Lion King. Whatever.
That is a
What's-
mongoose, isn't it?
I don't know. I guess so.
Is it
No, I don't think
Simone?
that's the name.
Lion.
Why is it called a mongoose if it's not related to a goose? I'm over here picturing it's some type of hairless bird, part of the flamingo
I said
family.
it looks like a squirrel with no hair.
Well, yeah, that's why I was really confused. I was like, so wait, is it like a goose body, but it looks like a squirrel? Wait, what?
Or Timon,
What?
not Simone.
Ah, all right. Well, yes. Glad you're back. Hopefully, you're glad to be back.
Oh no,
You look a little tanner.
Timon is a meerkat.
There you go. So it's like a meerkat mixed with a prairie dog.
Yeah.
So that's what it looks like.
Yeah,
But-
I got a little bit of tan. I was inside
Yeah.
eating most of the time. So.
I know. I saw practically every meal you had.
I'm pretty sure I sent you everything.
Every meal that was sent. And I was like, I don't really care for the entrees as much.
Yeah, I
You
think
like
I
sent
stopped.
me some like boned chicken, and I was like, nah.
I think I stopped
mm-mm.
sending you those, and I just started
Yep.
sending you dessert.
Yep. When you sent me that fridge picture with all the dessert cakes, I was
Yeah,
like,
we were.
yes.
There's this place called Foodland. It's kind of like King Super's, like we have here,
Foodland.
but it's
I would live
Foodland.
there.
But they have like, so it's like King Super's, normal like grocery area. But you know how King Super's has like their area where they have like the fried chicken and like the fish and
Yeah.
all that. Well, imagine that, but like twice as big with just a bunch of different types of food, like beef stew, like you can get spam musubi, like normal
Spam what?
chicken. You've never had a spam musubi?
Is that? I don't even know what that is.
Okay,
You just
you
just had me learn about a mongoose. I thought that was a part goose.
You gotta go to. You have L&L right over by you. Go to L&L and get a spam musubi.
How do you even spell that?
Spam musubi. 2 words. Musubi.
Does it have moose in
M-U-S-A-B-I.
it?
No.
Spam moose pie?
Okay, so do you like spam? Have you ever had spam?
I mean, I don't mind. I don't go out of my way to eat it.
Okay,
but-
it's a fried
know.
spam in the
Okay.
middle with rice around it, and then a seaweed around that wrapped around. It's really good with sauce in it. Go to L&L and get a spam musubi. You'll like it.
It looks like a sponge wrapped in seaweed. It looks like one of those floor scrubbers. Like the handle is the spam, the rice is the sponge, and you're just on the ground. There's some soap scum. Gotta just.
It's really good. Yeah, that's everywhere in Hawaii. If you go to like a 7-Eleven, they have some.
I don't know if I like seaweed. I don't think I've actually
Well,
ever had
this is
seaweed.
different. This is like different. It's not like wet slimy seaweed. It's more like
Crunchy.
yeah, because like if when it comes like straight, like You can get them in like a pack. Cause like my mom makes spam musubi, so when she gets the seaweed in a pack, you can literally like just like break it in half because it's dry, right?
You were like making sandwiches with this.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can get musubis with chicken, beef if you want, but you got to try the spam musubi first because that's like the main thing, and then you can get the other ones. I've never actually tried a different one though. I need to try a different one.
Looks a
But
little sketchy, but I might try it.
yeah, it's funny because when you go to like a 7-Eleven, they look a little like, but they're really good there. Like you can get, I mean, wherever you are, you can get spam musubi. It's like,
I don't know if I'd ever trust anything from 7-Eleven.
but yeah,
I don't
it's
know about that.
like no matter where you go, you can find some. Like we were, our hotel had the ABC store, and it's basically like, it has like, it's like connected to the hotel. So it has a bunch of stuff that you can buy like souvenir. It's like a souvenir shop mixed with like a gas station food type of stuff. But yeah,
All in one.
yeah, it's like an right. It's like an all-in-one. Oh, that's kind of how everything is there. But yeah, so we got spam musubi from there and stuff too. But it's you would love the food. I don't think you'd leave because you would
No.
know that you couldn't have the food here. So I don't think you would leave. You would be in the line at Leonard's probably 3 times a day, getting a box of malasadas every time.
I wouldn't be ashamed of it. I know who I am as a person, and I'm glad you do as well. I would be there. They would know me by name. Steven, me. Know what I want? Give me 3 dozens. Just walk out, finger guns. All right. Well, I'm glad you had a great trip. So now that is all done and set. You're hooked for life. You've signed a lifetime contract. You have no player option. There's only a team option. She can opt out. You can't. So that's what was disclosed. Not a max deal either. So you're just
Nope.
you're just stuck there. So that's all that's going to happen for you at this point. But we got a lot to get to. Obviously, we're getting close to the NBA Finals. One team is already set, the Phoenix Suns in the Western Conference. We'll get to that. Obviously, you can tell by the title that we're feeling some kind of way. But I also think that on the Eastern side, there's some flukiness going on as well. You don't necessarily. I do.
Well, I do.
because
It's just not as
every round.
obvious.
Yeah, every round. So we'll get to that. There was something Broncos related I want to get to as well.
Well, doesn't
can't
Rodgers
remember
have
it.
to make a decision today,
Um,
or is that tomorrow
I
that
don't
he has
know.
to make a decision?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen things that he can sit out the season, and
Well,
things
I think
like
there's
that.
something where if he,
Oh, Demarius Thomas retiring.
yeah,
So-
DT retiring, but I think for Rodgers, I think he can because of the COVID stuff. I think he has the option to opt out. If he does opt out
But
of
he
the
can't
season,
play, right?
no, he wouldn't be able to play, but he saves 20 million. So instead of holding out, what he can do is opt out, and he at least gets half his salary.
That would be a jerk move.
And then you wouldn't have to pay the fines every week, right? Because he's gonna have to pay a fine for not showing up.
Playing the loophole.
So there's a
Aaron-
loophole. Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, you sneaky
But I
guy.
think
that
he
means
has
that we
to, I
have to
think
roll
that
out Teddy
decision has
Bridgewater.
to come out today or tomorrow. I don't remember
Well,
seeing it. But,
Either way, we'll find out. But
but
okay,
then
where
he
do you want
can't
to
get
start
traded
first?
though. He can't get traded if he opts out. So
Right.
then we do all this all over again next year.
Right.
Yeah.
So where do you want to start first? You want to start with Rodgers DT, or you want
Yeah.
to start with
That should be
Okay.
relatively quick, so we can get through that before we get
right?
to the.
Well, I mean, I think we kind of already hit the nail on the head with Rodgers. I mean,
Yeah.
if he can opt out sometime soon, hopefully
I mean, I can
hopefully he just ends up in orange and blue somehow, preferably this year. But if it doesn't,
And when we
you
say
know?
orange and blue, we mean the Broncos, not the Bears.
yeah, not the knockoff one, even though
Justin Fields.
they were created before the Broncos. But our orange and blue is better. Is it the same shades of orange and blue?
I don't know.
think their orange is a little bit
I'm
darker.
so I see pictures of Justin Fields over there, and I just get depressed all over again. So
Oh, we're not talking about that. We've let that go. It was funny the other day. I was scrolling through our video feed, just watching old videos, and I came upon that one. I was trying to find my reaction to the Justin Fields pick. I didn't get that far, but Yes. Still makes me angry. But we're on to bigger and better things. Hopefully, a Hall of Famer will be here. Hopefully, Green Bay has your mindset where they like to trade Hall of Fame quarterbacks. That's what I'm hoping on. Hopefully, they're like you, and you want to give up great quarterbacks and go with unproven quarterbacks. That's what I'm banking on. That's what I'm hoping for. So we don't have to ride out with Drew Lock and Teddy Two Gloves. So
As far as of yesterday, it sounds like Rodgers won't opt out. So here we go. He's gonna
is he
call.
gonna show up or is he gonna hold out?
He's probably gonna hold out. And he's gonna try and call the Packers bluff.
See, but if you're the Packers, then at that point, you're going to hold on to him as long as possible. I mean, I would. I mean, if you're going to play the petty game, I would, because then you hold him as long as possible. You don't let him get to training camp, or you at least have him miss training camp and trade him right before the season starts. That way he has to learn everything on the fly and, for the first 3 to 6 games.
But Rodgers has enough money to where it's like, all right.
Oh, yeah, well, that doesn't matter.
I'll just do Jeopardy on the side and get my money.
Yeah.
So
State Farm commercials.
Yeah. So why does he need to even show up? He doesn't need to show up. He's not going to show up. He's gonna force him to trade him, and because here's the thing for Green Bay, what if he's not going to show up? What are you gonna do? You might as well trade him and get something for him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when is his value going to be the highest? That's the thing.
I don't know. I honestly, I think now. I think sooner the better. The longer you wait, the worse it's gonna get. To where teams are, yeah. Well, I mean, if the longer he sits out and teams are like, well, you waited too long. This is our offer now.
Well, what if you're Denver though?
Sure, but I mean, I don't think it's like something where Green Bay can hold out and wait for the best offer anymore.
Yeah.
I think that point has hit. Like, I think it's you either trade him now before camp and get the most value because I think teams are willing to give up more because camp hasn't started, right? Because you can get him, get through camp, get through preseason with him, you're all good. If it's come trade deadline, teams are gonna be like, well, I mean, if you want to trade him to us, great, but we're good where we're at. We'll wait till the offseason.
We also didn't get to, I don't think we did, at least a couple podcasts ago, when Kareem Jackson said he was talking to Deshaun Watson.
Mm-hmm.
Deshaun Watson said, do whatever. I want to be there. Let them know. Come get me type of thing. And
yeah,
I just don't know how I feel about that.
And until all of the other stuff gets settled,
yeah.
he's not going to get moved, so... Because
what
his
if they
talk about trade value being down, that's his trade value is just gone.
It's down
right now.
I mean, I still think they'd probably get like a first round pick, but I mean, before you're talking maybe like 3 1s. Now it might be like a 1 and a 2.
Right.
I don't know if you can go with that because like here's the thing, it's already to a point where people are gonna kind of look at him like, yeah. Like, even if he doesn't get convicted and they settle out, it's still kind of like, well, that still doesn't feel great.
It's a red flag, yeah.
Yeah, like it's just that.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I would rather have Deshaun Watson over Aaron Rodgers, right? Because he's younger. You're gonna have 10 plus years with him. He's super talented. He's mobile. I mean, he's a great quarterback. Rodgers is better now, but you're going to have Deshaun Watson for 10 plus years. Whereas Rodgers, you got maybe like a 4-year window, like Manning did. So I think I'd still rather have Deshaun Watson right now than Aaron Rodgers, as long as everything gets taken care of. Right? Like,
that's an interesting question,
like,
though.
Just on field, just football, I'd rather have Deshaun Watson. Just because you have a longer window. Me personally, I don't want to go through, well, we only got 4 years with this guy, and year 4 might be, not so great, right? How the Broncos won a Super Bowl with Peyton being in year 4 and being a shell of himself, that still blows my mind to this day. But I would rather I would rather be in the conversation I would rather be a contender every year for the next 12 to 15 years than be a contender for 4 years and the risk of him kind of falling apart year 3 and 4, because that's what happened with Banning. And do we look? Rodgers has had injuries in the past.
So is Deshaun, though.
He's played through them, which is great, but he's also 40. Deshaun's 24, 25. So
Rodgers will be 40 eventually.
He's almost 40. So what I'm saying is, like, I just Manning had the serious injury and the surgeries, but before that never had injuries. And he's not a guy who held on to the ball in the pocket, tried to make plays like that, right? He didn't put himself at risk. You saw the self sacks the 4 years he was here. He didn't put himself at risk. So he was more unlikely to get hurt. Whereas Rodgers, I don't fully trust that he will stay healthy for the first 4 years, because he hasn't done that the last 4 years. He's played through a lot, but he hasn't been healthy. So, and you can make an argument that's why they haven't really won anything too, because he was one of the years, I think he missed the rest of the season, and they were full-on Super Bowl contenders. So, it's tricky. If I had to pick, I would definitely pick Deshaun Watson, as long as everything gets thrown out the window. But I don't know. I mean, if he's guilty, he's guilty. I'm not.
Right.
I'm not hoping that he gets bailed out just because he's Deshaun Watson. Like, if he did it, then he's guilty. But if it's if it was some type of scheme to get money or whatever it was, then let's just get over it and go after him. But you have to wait and see what happens with all of that. So that's what makes it difficult. Is Rodgers available now? Well, kind of. Deshaun, you're gonna have to wait probably a year.
I just don't know who you have the. I totally get what you're saying, and it makes sense. But is Deshaun Watson Hall of Fame caliber like Aaron Rodgers is, or is he just really, really good? Like the Hall of really good.
Well, I mean, his numbers
I totally
are
agree with what you're saying.
Ridiculous. So I don't know.
Right. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. You'd rather have longevity than, just a quick span.
Well, let's go over his numbers here, okay? Let's see. So the last 3 seasons he's played a full season. 2019 missed 1 game. I don't know if that was on purpose or not. I don't remember.
Didn't he tear his ACL in the league?
That was year 1. So he played 7 games total, started 6 in year 1. He threw 19 touchdowns and 8 picks in 7 games, and threw for 1,700 yards. Year 2, threw for 4,100, 26 touchdowns, 9 picks. Year 3, 26 touchdowns, 12 picks, 3,800 yards. And then year 4, this past season, 4,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Completion percentage, 68, 67, 70. So he's not putting up the gaudy numbers like Rodgers has been, other than this past year where he threw 33 touchdowns, and that was a terrible team. I mean, he had no weapons.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's still all pro numbers, though. But here's the thing. It's like you're balancing, okay, do you want shorter span with Rodgers, possibly going to age himself out, or do you want to take the younger guy, Deshaun Watson, extend your contending life, but you got the outside stuff to worry about. Mm-hmm. Even if he does settle or he's not convicted or whatever the case is, there's still going to be that, just like there was, not to compare the situation, not saying that the situations are the same, but with like Michael Vick, when he got out, right, of prison, teams were hesitant to give him a chance, and then the Eagles did, and there was backlash for that and things like that.
But it worked out.
Again, not to say the situations are the same, but, eventually it kind of died down. But I don't know if this would ever die down.
Well, I think
because it's a different situation.
yeah, but I think if we've learned anything with professional sports, if you have the talent, you're gonna come back. I mean, look at Josh
sure.
Gordon. How many chances has
Oh
Josh
my
Gordon gotten?
gosh,
And then it comes
dude.
out yesterday that he puts in a request to be
Oh my
reinstated, and he
gosh.
probably will be reinstated. So, I mean, if a guy like Josh Gordon is getting 20 chances to prove
Yeah.
himself, Michael Vick went to jail for a year and got a chance, and succeeded. So Deshaun Watson will be back in the league. If he goes to jail for 3 years, let's just say, hypothetically, I don't know if that's like if he were to, I don't know how long he would be going, but let's
Think
just
someone gives him a chance.
let's say hypothetically he's in jail for 3 years. He comes back, he's in shape, he's ready to go at 28 years old. Yeah, someone's giving him a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right. But I don't know. It's if you're Denver, it's like which I think if you ask them candidly, who would you rather have? I think they'd say Rodgers because they avoid the PR stuff.
Well,
But
yeah, that's the
I
Broncos
also
for
think
you.
too that if they came away with Deshaun Watson and things got, settled or somehow handled and he's able to play this year, I wouldn't be shocked if they're doing like fist bumps behind closed doors like, yeah, the PR stuff is going to suck, but
Well, here's the thing.
looking at it strictly football wise, you got an all-pro caliber quarterback now.
Whether they want him or not, they're going to be excited because that makes it interesting with trading Rodgers, because now there's another guy available who some consider just as talented and 10 years younger. So now all of a sudden, Rodgers' trade value actually probably goes down if Watson is available, because Watson is the higher commodity, right? Theoretically, you would want Watson a little bit more than Rodgers because of his age, if you think he's as talented, which some people and a lot of people think that he is right there. So, and at 25 years old, he's going to get better.
I mean, I would still take, like, if we're just looking at strictly football, if you would have asked me this months ago before this stuff about Watson came out, right? And you said, who'd you rather have, Watson or Rodgers, or who's better? I think I would take Rodgers slightly, but I don't think it's like bounds and leaps he's better.
But all of the other stuff, I think, makes it more in favor of Watson. So now, because here's the thing. When you look at, for example, anything really, but like tech, right? And you have the iPhone, right? If the iPhone was the only phone in the world, you could raise the price because people need it. You have to get the iPhone.
Like Madden.
There you go. Right, exactly. They don't have to do anything to improve the game because they're the only game. But once someone else comes into play, now you're competing. So now not only are you having to make your product better, which for the players you can't, but then the price lowers because of competition. So all of a sudden, if Watson becomes available, Rodgers' price goes down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Packers need to make a decision now, because all of a sudden, if Watson becomes available, if everything gets brushed away, they lose value on Rodgers. This is their best chance. They need to do it now, unless they know behind closed doors that Watson's out of the picture for the next few years. Then you can wait, but we don't know.
No. It's gonna be interesting.
I mean, there was a report.
We thought June.
There was a report that Watson, that I remember, I think it was Rich Eisen, maybe, or somebody. He was like, "Get ready."
Was that recently?
That was a couple weeks ago. So now I don't know. Maybe his sources were wrong.
I haven't seen it. I haven't been on Twitter.
I believe it was him, and he was like, sources, like his sources were saying like, get ready. This could get interesting.
I mean, I've been ready for a month. I thought we were supposed to have a decision on Rodgers in June.
Well, what I'm saying is a decision on Watson's situation.
Oh, yeah. Well,
so, but what I'm saying though is Green Bay needs, if what's going on with Watson gets resolved, and it's good for Watson and he can play this year, the Packers need to be watching that, because they do lose a little bit. Maybe not a ton, but they will lose value on Rodgers if that happens. Because Houston's trading Watson. That's that's happening. It's not like Watson's going to somehow stay in Houston. Houston will trade him.
Matter of when.
Right.
Shall we place a friendly wager on this?
On
Which
what?
one they end up with?
I mean, I don't honestly, I don't think they end up with either of them.
No one asked you, Chiefs fan.
I just
Oh,
I don't. There's other teams that have more value right now.
Broncos
to
are
give
literally
up.
a quarterback away.
Sure, but what
Literally.
I'm talking about is draft picks because you can only trade out three years into the future of draft picks.
Well,
And
to
there's
the Broncos, you
there's-
can offer up Bradley Chubb, Jerry Jeudy.
Sure.
Other teams don't have that.
sure, but sure. I mean, other teams have good young players that they drafted because they had higher draft picks than the Broncos.
Right.
But Miami, one of those teams is Miami. They could offer Tua as well, another young player. But they can offer more than 3 first-round picks.
I mean, outside of Miami's defense, do they? I mean, and Devontae Parker is a good player.
I don't remember
But
if
I
they
mean-
signed someone, but that doesn't matter. What matters is the draft picks. The Broncos can only give 3 first-round picks. The Dolphins could probably give up 5 to 6. I think it's the Dolphins. There's another team that has just a ton. Here's another team to look out for. The Tennessee Titans. Do you
Nah.
really love Tannehill?
They just signed him. I mean, are you going to swallow that cap hit? That
For-
wouldn't be smart at all.
For Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson? Because if you get Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers, you're winning a Super with that team with Julio
Yeah.
Jones and the receivers group that they have. I'm
I
just
think
saying
they took themselves out of it.
that's
I mean, I get it.
intriguing.
Well, you'd rather have one of those guys than Tannehill, but again, listen, I've done a lot of Madden trade simulation, okay? Once you take that salary cap hit, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And he's got a big cap hit, I'm sure, because he signed a pretty decent deal. Tennessee's building an interesting team there. I don't think they'll win anything, but Julio, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry,
If Tannehill ends up,
Yeesh.
yeah, I just don't love Tannehill. So like,
yeah.
I don't know.
But I mean, he's good
He's
for what
good.
they ask him to do.
Yeah.
So he works. Now, is that enough to get you over the hump? That's the question. Like Alex Smith was good for what the Chiefs needed him to do, but it obviously wasn't enough to get them over the hump.
Yeah, but I
We'll
can
see
make
with
an
him.
argument that Alex Smith didn't have those weapons. So I don't know. I mean,
He had
dude, those
really good. Jamal Charles. Who
sure,
do they have
but
at
I
receivers?
would
I
I
mean,
would
he had Tyreek Hill for a couple years.
I
and
would
Kelsey.
take the Titans' weapons over what the Chiefs had at that time because you have a veteran in Julio Jones. You have I'm
2,000
blanking
yard rusher.
on the name AJ Brown, right?
Yeah, yeah, good young receiver.
y-
Derrick Henry,
Derrick
2,000 yard
Henry.
rusher.
It's just that's better. So I don't know, but here's the thing: Tennessee's defense went down. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
you know.
They were good the year before last, right? And then
And then last year they
kinda-
kind of struggled, and this year I think they've gotten slightly worse. So
here's another
I
team
don't
to
know.
think about. Your second favorite team. Do you know where I'm going with this? Outside of the Chiefs,
well, no,
Cleveland Browns.
yeah,
They
The-
haven't
the-
signed Baker, so I mean, if Deshaun or Aaron comes available,
yeah. I mean, there's a lot. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of interesting teams. It's not just like the Broncos and I don't know, another bottom feeder team. It's not just them. There's other teams that have like if you're Green Bay, right, and you don't like Jordan Love. Obviously, they don't really love Jordan Love right now.
you don't like love.
So
That's funny.
if you're kind of like, well, we don't love Jordan Love, then
We don't love love.
we don't love Love, then you do want a quarterback, right? Well, Baker's interesting,
To who?
and to Green Bay.
Is he?
He's better than Jordan Love. He's better than Drew Lock. He's better than Tua.
Stand corrected. You're right there. I'll give you that. Proceed.
So if Cleveland comes over and says we'll give you Baker and 3 firsts and a second. Well, that's better than Drew Lock, 3 firsts and a second.
We'll give you Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater.
And here's the thing. If they don't like Jordan Love, right? Why would you take Bradley Chubb or Jerry Jeudy over Baker?
Because I hope they do. That's why. I want Aaron Rodgers. Don't want to go into the year with another bad quarterback.
I can think off the top of my head, now that you've said Cleveland, there's 2 teams that are ahead of Denver as far as being able to get those players. Miami because of the draft picks. I almost said Kansas City. Miami because of the draft picks, and Cleveland because of Baker. And they have the same amount of draft picks as Denver.
Yeah.
I mean,
and a team could easily be fooled by the year Baker had last year too, right?
Exactly.
So,
well, and here's the thing. What do kind of a lot of people compare Baker to somewhat?
Case Keenum.
Well, not Brett Favre, right? A little bit. There's some people that there are some people I've seen. I'm not, because Baker doesn't have as strong of an arm as Brett Favre.
He's not as tall.
No,
like
Brett.
DJ's.
No, Brett was
tall.
Brett wasn't tall.
He's taller than Baker.
I don't think so.
Brett was like 6'2". Baker's maybe 6.
Let's see. Yeah, well, 6'2". I thought Baker was 6'1".
He's maybe 5'11", 6 foot.
They have him listed as 6'1".
Yeah. Baloney.
I'm just saying, he seems like a guy that fits in Green Bay. That Green Bay would want.
I mean, it's a nice consolation prize, sure. But, I mean, I'm not a buyer in Baker, to be honest with you. I think at best he's a solid quarterback, and that's about it. I think last year was an anomaly. I think they have a really good team, though. I mean, I forgot about this. I was scrolling through ESPN the other day because, again, I'm off Twitter, so I have to get my news the old way now. And I forgot that Cleveland signed Jadeveon Clowney. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, you got Clowney, who obviously hasn't lived up to what he was drafted to be, but he's still a really productive player, right? And you partner him with Myles Garrett, and that defense was really good last year. I mean, Cleveland could be there. I think I was just like a year too early on my AFC Championship prediction.
Yeah, Cleveland's gonna be.
They might be there.
Cleveland's gonna be really good. I'm trying to find.
Now they'll lose to the Chiefs, but
the Chiefs. We'll see with the Chiefs, because if the offensive line is still a mess and Cleveland adds, those guys.
They kind of shored up the tackle spots. They traded for a couple guys.
Yeah, but
the situation.
There's a reason why those guys got traded, though. I'm just saying, if it's not better. Which there's a chance. I mean,
they got a good left tackle. Who did they sign? They traded for a good left tackle. I think it was it New England somebody, or who did they trade for? What was his name? Who did they get?
I'm just saying, I gotta see it to believe it with that offensive line, because that was a disaster.
I can't remember who they got. Well, yeah, I mean, in the Super Bowl, that's because of injuries, though. But,
right? Then they got rid of those guys. They'll be fine. They'll be a great regular season team. We'll see in the playoffs.
Oh boy, you're already turning on your team, huh? Already, you're a great regular season.
I'm just saying it's hard to. Even as great as New England was, they couldn't make it to the Super Bowl every year. Granted, they made it to what?
Felt like it.
Yeah, felt like it. But it wasn't.
It was every other year.
It wasn't every year. I'm just saying they're beatable.
Yes.
And it's the same. It's the same way you beat the high-powered New England teams, the same way you beat Peyton and the Broncos.
Yes,
it's the same way every
not
time.
every team has the formula to beat them. That's what makes
Right,
them
but
not
what
very
I'm
beatable.
saying is, like you said earlier, Cleveland's interesting. Tampa Bay still, who's
Right.
brought all their starters back, is interesting.
But just
They can
because you
do
have
it.
the defense, you also have to have a quarterback that can make them pay
Right.
on the other side. Can Baker make them pay consistently like Brady can?
We'll see. I
No.
mean, and here's the other thing though, they have a top 5 running back. So, with 2 other receivers that are great receivers. So and a
that
great
hasn't
tight
worked
end.
thus far since OBJ's been there. Plus, he's coming off the ACL.
Yeah,
So-
and we'll see how that goes because I think Baker got better when OBJ was out. So
Yeah.
we'll see. But there's a formula. I think Cleveland's on the right track. Is Baker
Sure.
good enough? Well, Baker's better than Tannehill.
Mm,
He's better than Tannehill. He can make more throws than Tannehill. I'll say that. Does he make better?
Tannehill's a better athlete, though. Baker's
Sure.
more accurate. He's not have a great arm, though. He's not like a gunslinger.
No.
Tannehill's not really accurate, but he has a bigger arm. He's a better athlete. I don't know. I think I'd go with Tannehill, to be honest with you.
No. I think Tannehill's.
I think he's more of a threat.
I think if
because he
he-
can be a dual threat.
Well, Baker can run. It's not like Baker's Peyton out there.
Well, no, but
I would take. I think Cleveland's in a better
Tannehill played
situation.
wide receiver in college.
Right, he's the better athlete. I think Baker's the better quarterback.
If he is, it's slight. It's like hair margin. I mean, maybe you win one. Maybe he's worth one more game on the schedule, but I think I'll take that.
I
I think I'll
mean,
take my chances.
Baker has gotten farther in his first year in the playoffs than Tannehill has ever. So
They both got to. Baker's never been to an AFC Championship game.
got to the
Was the
same
Browns-
place. Got to the same place in year 1. Sorry.
Was the Browns game the AFC Championship game? No, that was Buffalo.
No, that was Buffalo. That
That was-
Buffalo.
that was-
I
that
mixed
was-
that up. That Buffalo game is so
They've been the
forgettable.
same. They've been as far as both.
Yeah. For some reason, I thought that was AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
It felt like it because Buffalo was just never gonna compete with Kansas City. So.
Glad you say that now. Glad you're admitting it.
Well,
Tried to tell you then.
I said no. I said the one team that had a chance was Cleveland, and they were the closest. Buffalo got
Yeah.
killed. Everyone else got killed.
Yeah,
And
the-
people bringing up Buffalo this year, they won't. Again, it's the same exact thing. They won't get anywhere.
Cleveland was. Oh, I disagree with that. The Cleveland was close when Patrick got dinged in
Buffalo
the head
will
and
win
he was
that-
seeing Looney Tunes.
Buffalo will win that division because it's an easy division.
Right.
Well, I don't know. New England might win that division
No.
still.
No.
You never know. I mean, I
No,
don't
I
think
know.
Buffalo. I don't think is that good. I think they win 10, 11
Do
games.
you want me to guarantee it? I'll guarantee it.
You
I
go-
guarantee
I mean,
Buffalo will win the division.
Okay, I mean, I don't know. Every year is so random. It's hard
And this
to-
isn't an Avs guarantee either. This is a real guarantee. Just saying. Too soon? Too soon? Hey, at least the Knights lost, right? Be happy about that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. The AFC is just. I think there's maybe 3 teams in the AFC that I think have a legitimate shot at getting to the Super Bowl. I think it's Kansas City, obviously. Cleveland.
Buffalo.
I think it's Kansas City, Cleveland, Tennessee.
I disagree.
I do not think Buffalo has a chance. Not against Kansas. They're a bad matchup against Kansas City. If they have to go through Kansas City, they'll lose.
Well, yeah, because they try to beat them. They try to beat them at their own game.
Right.
And you can't do
Whereas
that.
Cleveland and Tennessee don't. They look. Here's the thing. Cleveland,
Yeah, but
Tennessee
they don't
doesn't
have
have.
the quarterbacks to make them pay consistently.
I think Baker's
Buffalo
closer.
does.
I think Baker's closer than Tannehill though, and I think Cleveland's defense is really good.
If
This is their
if Josh
shot
Allen
here.
was
They're gonna
on-
lose, guys. This is their shot here. This season, this Cleveland shot.
if Allen was on Cleveland or Tennessee, then I think you have a real argument.
Right.
But
Right.
I think Cleveland and Tennessee have the right mindset, right? Run the ball, control the game, play defense.
Well, Tennessee.
Buffalo is like, we just want to get up and down the field with you, and their defense.
Mhm.
You talk about defense that dropped from the year before. Their defense dropped,
Right.
right? Because they were good
Two
a couple
teams-
years ago.
Two teams that are really good, that I like a lot, but I don't think have a shot because of their play style is Baltimore and Buffalo. I think they're in the same boat. They're gonna win.
Never gonna buy into Lamar.
They're gonna win 12, 13, 14 games,
Mm-hmm.
but they
the
won't.
Utah Jazz.
They won't be. They're the Utah Jazz. they're the Utah Jazz. So I just they're really good teams, but Cleveland has done it the right way. Tennessee has done it the right way. Obviously Kansas City is there, but other than that, looking at it, unless Aaron Rodgers goes to a really good AFC team, I don't see any of the AFC teams really contending other than those three teams. And then you look at the NFC. I think the NFC is just wide open. There's a lot of good teams. I think Tampa Bay is obviously the front runner, but there's a lot of good teams in the NFC. I mean, the whole NFC West is good. So
Yeah. I mean, San Francisco gets every injured player back. I mean, they were like the Broncos of the NFC. They were
Worse.
ravaged with injuries. So, I mean, you get Kittle and Bosa.
yeah.
You know, they were just completely decimated.
Seattle's gonna be good. The Rams with Stafford's gonna be very interesting.
Interesting.
The the Cardinals are gonna be good.
I still think they're a few years away from
They're
that.
a few years away, but they're gonna be good. Like that whole division is
Yeah.
really good.
They-
I
they
think
might be scrapping
Atlanta.
for a
I think
wild card.
Atlanta's a sneaky team.
I
Let's
don't
see.
think so.
The Saints, no. Tampa Bay's gonna be good. Chicago, not yet. Detroit,
Mhm.
no. Green Bay, no. Minnesota,
Yeah.
no. Dallas is interesting. The Giants,
Are
no.
they?
Philly, no. And Washington, no. Yeah. With Dak, when you have Dak Prescott, I think we'll see what their defense. They drafted a corner, and then they drafted Micah Parsons, and then I think they got a corner later. So if that defense can, not be trash, that offense is great.
And speaking of that, they got I almost said America's team. They got Hard Knocks. Broncos could have been on Hard Knocks.
Yeah, the Broncos will never be on Hard Knocks.
I think that would have been fun to see.
It would have been fun to see, but they'll never. Be on Hard
I'm
Knocks.
kind of tired out on the Cowboys. I mean, this is their third time on it. I mean, I'll watch it, but I'm just like, eh.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like interested in the Cowboys like everybody else says. National media. I don't really care about Cowboys, but it is. I want to hit on this Demaryius Thomas thing though, because he retired last week after 10 years, 10 years. I think it's 10, 11 years actually. 9 years with Denver, 1 year with Houston, 1 year with the Jets. He's going to finish just shy of 10,000 yards, 9,769 yards. He had, how many catches did he have? 724, so kind of close to the 1,000-yard mark. He's going to finish with 63 touchdowns. I mean, I don't know if Demaryius is a Hall of Famer. Definitely a Ring of Famer, obviously. But it's a weird thing to look back on Demaryius' career, because there was a 3-4 year stretch there with Peyton where him and Dez, I mean, you could argue were who's the best out of those guys. I mean, obviously you had like Julio Jones and everything like that, and I don't know if Calvin Johnson was still in the league at the time, but I mean, Demaryius was definitely top 5, maybe top 3, maybe even arguably the best receiver in the league. I mean, you talk about a guy, the bubble screens to him, how he could just one cut and boom, you're not catching him. Now, there was always the questions of, well, he's not a raw guy like Dez. He's not aggressive and he gets in your face, and that's not him. But when he gets the ball in his hands, I mean, he's electric. We saw with the wild card game, like I said, any sort of bubble screen, he was a threat. I think back to that Minnesota game with Tebow, where that was like his really coming out party, I think, as a Bronco with how he played in that game. But his career, he's just one of those Broncos where he was just, it seemed like fans turned on him. And yes, he had the drops late in his career and he struggled to stay healthy a little bit. But I think when you look at DT, and I think he'll be more appreciated the further we get removed from his career, I think he's arguably the greatest receiver in franchise history. I think, Rod will hold like the yards record, and probably, I don't know how many touchdowns Rod has. But when you think of the most talented receiver the team has ever had, it's Demaryius Thomas. And, he should be celebrated for that. They don't win the Super Bowls the Super Bowl that they did without him. They don't get to the Super Bowl, in 2013 without him. And if you look back at that Super Bowl, the only person that really showed up was Demaryius. And he played through a separated shoulder because he got murdered by Cam Chancellor on like the first drive or the second drive. So I'm happy for him. I kind of wish he would have finished his career here and got one more year here, after that New York Jet year. But I'm happy he was a Bronco. He was a great receiver. Again, I don't know if he's a Hall of Fame worthy receiver, but we talk about Hall of really good. Demaryius was Hall of really good.
Yeah, he's a Ring of Famer for sure.
Yeah.
Looking at the numbers, he was third in receptions at 665. Rod had 849. Shannon had 675. Catch percentage, which this is a newer stat, but people bringing up all the drops and stuff. Catch percentage, his was 60.7. Rod's was 60.3. So don't give me this crap about the drops.
You have to also factor in though that Rod played in a era where they didn't throw it as much though. So
right, well, which increases the drop percentage, or which increases the amount of drops that you're gonna get. Right? Demaryius had way more targets. Well, I mean, in a shorter span of if you go season by season, I'm sure DT had more targets, which means you're gonna have more drops.
Yeah.
So and you're gonna remember those drops more than the catches, unfortunately, with fans. So the drops, look, yeah, DT had some issues, but when you get targeted that much, you're gonna get drops. Second in yards, Rod was at 11,389, DT 9,055. Obviously, Rod Smith played more games. He played
with the Hall of Famer for most of his career.
Pretty much his whole. Well,
no, he got his career for like 3 years, I think.
3-4 years, and then I guess same as DT, right?
Yeah.
But he played longer. Rod Smith played longer. He played 60 more games. So 60 more games, getting 2,000 more yards. So I think DT average-wise got more yards per game. Yeah, I got 10 more yards per game. And then touchdowns, Rod at 68, DT at 60 in 60 less games. So yes, I agree with you. I think DT is the greatest receiver in Broncos history. Not just what he did on the field, but just his talent. I mean, 6'3", like you said with the bubble screens, he was at 6'3", 220, but could run
4'4"
like the way
guy.
he could. It was ridiculous.
He's a blade. He's the common. He's like that type of receiver was really starting to break in when he came into the league.
Right.
2010, 11, like because it was that Calvin Johnson, Andre Johnson mold. Like you want a bigger receiver, but at that time those guys weren't really burners. Then you started to get guys where it's like DT size and he can run a 4.4.
Des Bryant. Yeah.
Right.
Now you're seeing 6'1" guys with super speed.
Right.
That can jump like crazy. Now you're seeing those guys. So
yeah. But I mean, you look at DT's stats too. I mean, his third year. I mean, obviously he got Peyton, but his third year, he's at 1,400 yards. He had almost 6 straight years of 1,000 yards. 1,400, 1,400, 1,600, 1,300, 1,083, 949. And he had 10 touchdowns, 14, 11, 6, 5, 5. I mean, the guy was great, and I get it. There was moments he had some big drops. He did, but I mean, when you look at it from a 1,000-foot view instead of living in the moment of he just dropped a game-sealing catch. I mean, he's a Ring of Famer, like we both just said, and he should be celebrated for what he did here. He'll I don't know if it's like retire jersey worthy, but the Broncos definitely don't reach 2 Super Bowls and win one without Demaryius Thomas, even though he wasn't the same player necessarily in the second Super Bowl, but he was still really good, and good enough to help them in that year. I mean, what am I saying? He's still at 1,300 yards. Like, he's still at 1,300 yards and 6 touchdowns, so he was still really freaking good. And that was in a year where, the Broncos offense wasn't great. So I don't know. I'm kind of sad because, he's also one of those guys off the field where he's just really humble.
Yeah.
He's not one of the like over the top rah guys off the field. I need all the big cars and flashy this. Look at me. He's not that guy. He just goes in, does his job, much like Rod Smith was, right? Like, just wasn't a overly boisterous guy. Just come in, do my job, win as much as I can, and see you later.
Yeah,
so good for DT.
It's a bummer that his career was just short. I mean, he's only.
It was 11 years. That's still really good.
It's 11 years.
He got 9 years here.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as like prime, because I mean, his prime was 4 years. I mean, that last, in 2016, the Super Bowl year, obviously Peyton wasn't very good.
Right. Well, I mean, could we argue though if they would have gotten a good quarterback in 2016? I mean, he still had 1,083 yards.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I guess five years, but after that, I think that's where he kind of started. You could see.
Right. Well, at that point, after 2016, he's on the foot of 30.
Right, and so it's just I just and I guess that's how that's how Dez was and whatnot. But I think it's just different with Rod Smith because he was so good for so long. I mean, at 35, he put up 85 catches and 1,100 yards.
Did he really? My goodness.
So like
that guy is so amazing.
I think DT had the better peak. Obviously, he had a 4-year ridiculous run.
I mean, like I said, he was among the top of the league. You could argue he's a top 3 receiver in the league.
Right. Whereas Rod Smith had the longer career. I mean, he had Rod Smith. I'm looking at his career. He had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years where he had 1,000+ yards.
Yeah.
So he had the longer the longevity, I guess. But DT, I mean, there was that 4-year run. I mean, 1,400, 1,600, 13. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's insane. But good for DT, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad that he can retire, and hopefully his body's still in decent enough shape where he's not, having to limp around all the time. And he's a Super Bowl champion. He'll definitely be a Ring of Famer someday. So definitely worth it. I mean, Josh McDaniels, hey, I mean, we can crap on him for all we want, but he gave us DT. So
would you have rather him pick Dez? Because Dez went second.
I think DT obviously had the better career, right?
Yeah, but
I mean, DT also stayed healthier longer.
DT had Peyton Manning. So
well, I mean, it's not like Dez. I mean, Dez had Romo. I mean, obviously Romo's not Peyton, but Romo's really good.
So they made the right
good quarterback.
So McDaniels made the right decision drafting DT or drafting Dez over DT. I think so too.
I think in the beginning, it seemed a little hit and miss, but I mean, we can look at their numbers. I mean, we can compare them side by side. I think Dez fell apart quicker than DT did.
Yeah, I mean about the same, but yeah, right around.
Let's see. I'm trying to look at their. Doesn't give me their career totals here. Oh, here we go. Why is it not showing Demaryius's? It shows 0. Okay. I mean, Demaryius is going to finish with 2,200 more yards. Dez had 12 more touchdowns. So.
I think
DT stuff is all zeroed out.
Dez, I think, was the better red zone guy, even though DT was still 6'3". Like, Dez high pointed the ball more often.
So he was the 50-50 guy.
Yeah, he was better in the red zone, so he got more touchdowns. But I mean, look at yards. I mean, Dez only had 3 years of 1,000 yards or more. 92 catches, 1,300 yards. 93 catches, 1,200 yards. 88. He never had a 100-catch season. So yeah, I think DT not only was a better player, but had the better career. Dez just was the better touchdown guy.
Mm-hmm. And he was, and I think he got more love because he was in Dallas, right? He was a bigger personality.
Yep.
I think DT was a little bit more explosive than Dez was. Like I said, I mean, he's one of the only receivers I've seen at his size take a bubble screen and outrun guys. Like, you could YouTube DT's highlights. The Cardinals game back in 2013, 14 comes to mind, where he takes a bubble screen and he's down the sideline and he's outrunning DBs. He's not outrunning linebackers or linemen. He's outrunning DBs. So, yeah, I mean, when you look at it now, I think, Dez, really good. I mean, he had 3 years where he was really good. He was a 900-yard receiver in his second year, but I'm happy with it. I don't sit back and like, man, I wish they would have took
Right.
Dez. No.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I
agree.
think in the moment though, you're like, maybe I'd rather have Dez right now. But I think the Broncos, at the end of the day, Josh McDaniels got it right.
Mhm.
And we're celebrating a Ring of Famer here. Whereas Dez, I mean, I don't know if they have a Ring of Fame in Dallas. I'm sure they have something similar. I don't know if he's that for them, because I mean,
I don't know.
he's 400 yards in 2015. 700 yards, 800 yards.
I think he'll be remembered
Right.
a lot more than, especially on the national side of things, he'll be remembered more than DT. But
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
which is crazy because looking at DT's career, it looks way better than Dez's. So
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if they have a Ring of Fame or not, but that's interesting. Three
Yeah.
really good years, and that's about it.
Mhm.
Is that worthy of being like if that was swapped, right? If DT only had 3 years, is that Ring of Fame?
Oh, no. I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah,
Well, I mean, but they also put John Lynch in the Ring of Fame, and he was only here for like a handful of seasons. So,
sure.
but yeah, I mean, after 14,
Hall of Fame
that's
player,
when
though.
the injury issues came. 9 games, 13 games.
Yeah.
I mean, he did have 16 in 2017, but he only had 834 yards, and then he got the Achilles, and then he didn't play in 2019 or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, shout out to DT and all that. Okay, we finally got to get to what the title is here. We've gone almost an hour. It's good to talk football, though. Okay, let me just say, I don't think in my time in watching sports, which has been, that I can remember at least 20 years, right? I'll be 28 this year. I don't think I've ever seen an easier path to a championship in all of professional sports.
No, it's the easiest since the Boston Celtics 60s.
Like, I mean, a few, when I think specifically of the NBA, a few come to mind, right? Obviously, Toronto winning against Golden State without Clay.
The road wasn't easy. The finals,
No.
the finals itself, they got
Sure.
bailed out.
But that's
The
what I'm saying.
road
Like,
to
I'm
it
just
wasn't.
thinking of moments where things got super easy, where this to me, I'll just say, it's going to be an asterisk year. To me, I think it's a fluke. It's the 2021 flukiest ship.
Right.
NBA fluky ship. It's the most healthy team award. That's what this year's championship is going to be. But I think of the Raptors. I think of the Warriors in 15. Now, the road might not have been easy, but if Kelly Olynyk didn't snap off Kevin Love's arm and Kyrie didn't break a bone in his knee or whatever he did in game 1, I think it was, or game 2,
Game 1.
then Cleveland probably wins that finals, right?
Well, yeah,
and it changes
Cleveland
what we
won-
think the Warriors are.
Cleveland won Game 1 in Golden State.
Right. So I think of those, but never have I seen, again, in all the professional sports, and specifically the NBA, an easier path. I mean, when you look at, here's the thing too, because we said this on the last podcast when we talked about this. It's not that the Phoenix Suns are not a really good team. They are a really good team.
But they're in
when
a
you
great
get
West.
in a great West, usually that isn't killed with injuries.
Yeah.
And like people say, well, injuries are a part of the game. What playoffs do you remember where literally almost every team, okay, I was thinking about this last night. The Utah series versus Memphis, okay, Mike Conley was hurt and Donovan Mitchell hurt his ankle, okay? Obviously Golden State's been out, but the Nuggets had no Jamal Murray. Their starting backcourt was gone, and PJ Dozier was gone, right? You had the Lakers. LeBron's coming back off the ankle injury. We know he's not 100%. AD is always hurt, but he's coming off the calf thing. But then he goes down, okay? In game 4, mind you,
Right.
when the Lakers are up
were
2-1.
up 2-1. And they were up in that Game 4, I believe.
Up 2-1, he gets hurt with the groin. He goes down. Kawhi gets hurt against Utah. All right, hurts his knee, hasn't played since. Well, didn't play since he hurt that.
And honestly, the Clippers won that series because Donovan Mitchell was hurt.
There you go. But also, in the Clippers series versus Suns, they also lost Zubats in Game 3, and you say, "Oh, it's Zubats." Well, okay, that's the only big that they had on the roster. They were also without Serge Ibaka, who was projected to be a starter for them as well. So, like, people forget that part too. So they didn't have their full team. All right. And then you look at the Suns' run, they literally every round have gotten the biggest breaks. Okay, we just mentioned the Lakers are up 2-1. Anthony Davis goes down. LeBron's not obviously 100%. I don't know if he's at the point to where he can carry a team anymore. Maybe that's overreaction and hyperbole. But he's a step slower. And with an ankle injury, he's not what he used to be. So, of course, okay, they're the better team. They're going to advance. You face the B team, pretty much, the JV squad. You're not getting the full firepower. Then you get the Nuggets. Oh, they have the MVP. Of course they have the MVP. But how many finals and playoffs, how much playoff success did Jordan have without Pippen and all those guys?
None.
How much success did KD have without, Russ or, Golden State and all that? How much did LeBron have without a second running mate? I mean, my point is MVPs can't win championships alone.
And people don't realize because, Jamal's not obviously included in the group of all-stars that have been out in the playoffs. But it's not like people don't realize, and especially I think Phoenix fans don't, it's just Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray, look, you look at his numbers, you're like, they weren't missing that much, 25-5. It's decent, but it's not like, AD, right? But what Jamal does for the Nuggets, he's their closer, and I will die on that hill. He's their closer. He is their closer.
One of them,
sure, one of them. But he's in my mind, he's the go-to guy.
Okay,
they in close games they need him, and when there were stretches against Phoenix where it was like a 10-point, where it was not 10, it was like a 5-point game, right? Especially the game, I don't remember exactly what game, but where Chris Paul closed it out. Jamal wins that game for the Nuggets. Jamal wins probably, I believe, game 1. The first half was close. Second half, that's Jamal time, right? That's what Jamal does, is when they need a bucket, when they can't score, that's when Jamal hits a tough shot and gets them going. And you can look at Jamal in the regular season, but and that's fine, but go look at what he does in the playoffs. And don't just look at the bubble season, because I get the bubble, whatever. You can say what you want about the bubble. Go to year 1. His first year in the playoffs, averaging 25, 26 a game. And in the games where the Nuggets won, he was averaging more than that. He was putting up really good numbers in those games, and not only the numbers, he's the reason why they beat San Antonio in round 1, and honestly, he's the reason why they didn't beat Portland in Game 7 in the second round. He wasn't himself. He kind of fell apart to the pressure because it was his first kind of run at it, playing Dame. So he is, as far as importance level, in a lot of cases, he is more important than the Nuggets MVP. In certain cases. So it's not like, he just averaged 25-5. It's not like he's an all-star superstar guy. Yeah, he is. In the playoffs, he is. So it's not like the Nuggets, if the Nuggets had Jamal but we were missing Will Barton, okay, fine. Like, yeah, Will Barton's important, but you can cover that, right? Because you have Jamal. Right, you have your superstars. Will Barton as a role player, yeah. Teams in the past have unfortunately lost role players, important role players, and they lost series because of that. But to lose your superstar, and all 3 of those teams to lose their superstar, that's ridiculous, and that's never happened before. That's never happened. And if you looked at it, and even, we've had the Phoenix guys, and look, they're great. And we had Coach on. He picked the Lakers in 5.
Yes.
And,
His exact
and,
words was,
and
I would be surprised if the Suns win 2 games.
right, and before Jamal went down, we talked to them, and it was the Lakers 1, Nuggets 2.
Yeah.
So look, if all things were healthy, if injuries were turned off, it would have been I think the winner of the Lakers Nuggets series would have been the West Finals, right? Either of those teams coming out of that series probably would have beat the Clippers. But a healthy Clippers team also beats Phoenix. Honestly, I think a healthy Utah team makes it 7 against Phoenix and might actually beat them because they have Gobert to cancel out DeAndre Ayton. And Donovan Mitchell can cancel out Devin Booker. Mike Conley can cancel out Chris Paul. The Jazz have better shooters around than Phoenix. It's close. Those two teams are really close. I can't say Phoenix beats them. I can't say Utah beats them, but I think that's a 7-game series if all things are healthy. So Phoenix on that totem pole at best was 4th, probably 5th. Because they don't beat the Lakers healthy. They don't beat the Nuggets healthy. They don't beat the Clippers healthy. They might beat the Jazz healthy, but you can make an argument that the Jazz should also beat them. So they're 4th or 5th, which, by the way, before the season started, where did I have Phoenix? At the 5 seed. And if Golden State were healthy, they wouldn't beat Golden State. So, look, Phoenix, it's the luckiest finals run of all time. Now, should they be, disappointed? Well, honestly, yeah. I mean, if it were flipped and if it were the Nuggets, right, 2 years ago, let's say 2 years ago, Nuggets' first playoff run, let's say Dame had gotten hurt, and before that, or maybe let's say CJ got hurt in the second round, San Antonio had no one, so whatever. And then let's say they had gotten to the Western Conference Finals, and it was Golden State who had just Steph. And they beat Golden State. Would I feel I'd be excited because they made it to the finals, but would I feel like it was like a legit run? Honestly, no.
Absolutely not. And that's what I was going over last night too.
I can be objective.
Right.
And I think for both of us, real quick, I think for both of us, we've been in the sports media professional space. So for both of us, I think we learned how to be objective about our favorite teams.
100%.
And there's a lot of, and look, the Valley guys are great. And I don't know if they've ever been in professional sports media, but one of the biggest things when you're in sports media, professional sports media, you are not only do you learn how to be objective, but you're kind of forced to be objective. And the guys that don't figure that out then either work for certain places or they don't make it, because you have to be objective. You have to learn how to be objective, right? And so look, they're those guys, and I'm using them as an example because they're the only guys I know with Phoenix. So they're great, but I don't think they're able to see objectively as much as, say, us, because of where we've been and what we've done in the past and kind of who we are too, So, look, they're excited. All Phoenix fans are excited. But how can you feel accomplished? Like, 100% accomplished, right? Like, you can feel maybe 50, give you that. But how can you feel like, oh, we were absolutely the best team? Especially if Milwaukee makes it to the finals and Giannis can't play.
Well, and that's another thing, too. I mean, just to address kind of everything you've said, I think that's another reason why I was going through this last night. I'm like, man, if I was a Phoenix fan, like if this was Denver, right? And we got the Lakers, but they didn't have LeBron, like, okay, like at least we got past the Lakers. But you just don't feel like you really accomplished it. There's always going to be that, well, this is the championship of the yeah, but. Yeah, you beat the Lakers, but they didn't have AD and LeBron wasn't 100%. Yeah, you beat the Nuggets, but they were out without their starting backcourt, a key role player, and one of the starting backcourt players is the second best player on the team. Yeah, you beat the Clippers, but they didn't have Kawhi Leonard, who's their best player, and they didn't have a couple role players as well who were starters, or one was projected to be a starter, and one was in and out of the lineup, Zubats. And then if you get to the finals, we don't know what Trae Young's status is. If Atlanta comes back and wins this series, what if that ankle is still hobbling him? Okay, yeah, they beat Atlanta, but they didn't have Trae Young.
It will still be hobbling them. And same with Giannis.
Right.
They're not going to be 100%.
If it's Milwaukee, okay, yeah, you beat Milwaukee, but you didn't have Giannis. So I'm just like, man, like, yes, your team wins a championship, you're excited, but it doesn't feel like you actually won like you did. Granted, it's still a long season, it's arduous, and it's grinding, and it's all this, but it's like you got all the way to the playoffs, and I just don't feel like this championship will completely validate how good this team is.
And look, Phoenix is good. They're really good.
Really good, but you're not seeing them against the best players.
Right. And here's the thing.
Or
Why
teams.
did we say they weren't good enough? Because Devin Booker is in his first playoff run at 25 years old. And DeAndre Ayton is also in his first playoff run at 22 years old. They're not ready. They're not supposed to be ready. And if you look at their numbers across the whole playoffs, they weren't ready. There are some games where Devin Booker was great. There's been some games where DeAndre Ayton were great. But the great players, when they are ready, are doing it every single night. Every single night. Nikola Jokic putting up 30, 12, and 8 every single night. He had one bad game in 12 games, right? LeBron James putting up at least 27, 7, and 7 in every single game. That's what the great players do. And for Devin Booker,
1 second.
Okay. For Devin Booker, he's a great player, and you know, I'll tell Steven this when he gets back. But when Devin Booker is healthy, or when he's healthy, when Devin Booker is playing great, right? I think Devin Booker can be a top 5 player in the league one day. Honestly, if someone came back from the future, 10 years in the future, and says, hey, Devin Booker is going to be the best player in the league in 3 years, at the age of 27, 28, Devin Booker is going to be the best player in the league. I would say, yeah, I could see that. 100%. I could see that. He has the talent. He's close. If you told me also that DeAndre Ayton would be a top 3 center in the league, I could see that. Right? They are. I mean, DeAndre Ayton was the number 1 overall pick. Right? They have the talent, and they're really good right now. They are great players. But in your first playoff run against guys like LeBron and AD, who've been there, done that, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, who've gone through it already, their first 2 playoff runs, and they're right at the edge of their prime. Kawhi has done it. Paul George has been in the playoffs many times. He's gone through it. Those guys, Donovan Mitchell went through it last year and the year before that, right? They're getting their stripes. And that means some experience in the NBA playoffs. Means some. There's a reason why Golden State took 3 years. There's a reason why OKC took 2 or 3 years. 3 years, I think. There's a reason why LeBron took a couple years. It takes time. Jordan had to go through the Pistons, right? Go through the Celtics. You have to go through it no matter how great you are. That's why no one picked Phoenix to get to where they are, whether teams are healthy or not, because they weren't ready. And if Giannis does come back 80% or better, Milwaukee will beat them in 5 or 6. Because not only are they a really good team, Milwaukee's a really good team, and Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton have been phenomenal, but also they've gone through it. The Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton haven't had to deal with pressure. It's been easy. It's been easy for them.
Experience doesn't matter when you're not playing a full team, right?
Well,
Yeah, you have the
you're
better
not
team,
playing
but the other team is
experienced
missing
guys.
everybody.
The teams are missing
So-
the guys that can
Experience
top
doesn't matter.
that can top those guys because they have the experience, right? If it's, you know,
Well, not just the experience, but the talent. Like your experience level doesn't matter. You know, if you're not playing against the best players that make up the better teams in
Right.
the league.
right, so it's just I really before the season 2, I really liked Phoenix and I thought they were going to be a really good team this year. But the one thing that and I love Devin Booker. Devin Booker is one of my favorite players in the league. He's been one of my favorite players in the league for the last 3 years. You know, he reminds and a lot of people point out he's not, you know, he's not to the level yet and he might not ever be. Most likely will never be. But he's the closest to Kobe Bryant since Kobe. Same size, what he does, he has the mid-range game. You know, he's as close as you can get as far as the type of player he is. Now, mentality-wise, there's been other players that have had Kobe's mentality, right? But as far as talent level, what he does on the court, size, all of that, he's the closest. But he's 24, 25 years old. You know, you can. Well, Kobe was, you know, 21, 22 when he was winning championship. Yeah, Shaq. So it's
Right.
a little different when you have a guy like that, and you can point to CP3, but what has CP3 done?
Right.
So, the Phoenix Suns are a really good team. They're a really good team,
This just doesn't validate it.
but it doesn't. It does now. You want to
At
prove it?
all.
You want to prove that they deserve to be here? You're gonna have to do it next year. And I
Yeah,
saw
do it
someone
next year.
say, "Well, then you know, if you're counting this as an asterisk season, you better call it next season one because it's another shortened off season." No, because I disagree with that because yeah, it's a slightly shorter off season, longer than the last off season. First off, slightly shorter than normal, but the season itself isn't going to be condensed. That's the difference, right? The season itself isn't going to be condensed. So now when guys start to come back, they're going to be able to play at a decent, you know, pace, right? They're not playing back to back so much. It's not playing 4 games in, you know, 6 nights or whatever it is. So 5 games in 7 nights. So it's going to be different. And the reason also, we're not saying that this season and this championship is there's an asterisk on it because of the shortened off season. That's part of it, but the 90% of the reason is because of the injuries, which was caused by the shortened season and condensed season. But if all the players were healthy, we wouldn't be saying this is an asterisk season because of the shortened off season. Didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because everyone's on the same playing field. The
Right.
ball.
Every team has lost their star, it seems
Right.
like.
And
I mean,
look at the
Milwaukee's not
bubble.
even in their position if Brooklyn is healthy.
Exactly. Yeah, and I guess Atlanta, they're in. I mean,
Philly just choked.
Philly just choked. So Atlanta's where they would have been, but I don't know. And also the Clippers. I'm not sure the Clippers win if Donovan Mitchell is fully healthy. And Mike Conley,
Maybe
by the way,
not.
didn't play.
Right.
So every team that got to the conference finals, except for the Hawks, got there because of injury fortune, and not just a role player like Rajah Bell, but their first or second best player, or their first and second most important player. And that's just, I don't know how you can feel 100% good about this run if you're a Phoenix fan. You
Right,
can
and
feel
we'll-
excited. And we're not saying you can't be excited that we want you to be all bummed. Like, no, but you have to look at it objectively. You wouldn't. The Phoenix Suns shouldn't have even gotten out of the first round.
No, they shouldn't have. When you look at it, yes, you should totally be excited your team won a championship, but it's like, yeah, we really got. You didn't get just fortunate. Like, this is full on
You can't call it
luck of the
lucky.
Irish.
It was, yeah. You can't just call it lucky. You have to call
Like-
it like just
This was like manufacturing the best playoff scenario possible,
Right.
right? Like, you bring up the 2015 Broncos, like, yes, they didn't play the healthy Steelers, but my only pushback on that is that when they played the Steelers earlier in the season, they were actually up 17 points at one point in that game, and then in the second half they gave it up and Antonio Brown went nuts. Yes, they didn't play the full healthy Steelers in the playoffs, but they did have to play a fully healthy New England team. They did have to play a fully healthy Carolina team with the MVP.
It was one game where they were fortunate. Not every single round. I mean, you could absurd.
Make the argument too. The Lakers took them to 6 without AD being healthy and LeBron being healthy.
The Clippers took him
to 6.
You're telling me that Pandemic P got you to 6? Really?
Okay, watch your mouth. He played well in spots. But you could say that if the Clippers are literally, think about it this way, they're an overtime buzzer-beating, or not overtime, was it overtime? A buzzer-beating dunk away from winning that game, and Paul George missing free throws, and the refs horrendously blowing calls in that game. Like the out of bounds off of campaign, like blatantly just missing calls in that game. From that series completely being shifted. The Nuggets didn't have a chance because they were the most injured team out of all of these teams to go up against Phoenix. So, listen.
Well, and here's the thing. And I want to get to this because we talk most of everything that we've said, we talked about last week. The one thing that I want to talk about too is I've seen a lot on, you haven't been on Twitter, but this last week and a half, maybe a couple weeks, I've seen a lot of, we deserve this as Phoenix fans. We deserve this.
Oh boy.
Okay. You're not the only small to mid-market who has gotten screwed over the last 30, 40 years.
I'm glad you brought that up. Finish your point, but I'm glad you brought up small to mid-market teams.
The Denver Nuggets, just as a Nuggets fan, okay, we've also gone through hell with really good Nuggets teams getting unfortunate and having unfortunate bounces, okay, and injuries. I want to point to one specifically, though. Now, it's not on the court, okay, but it's one where it's like, it's pretty unfortunate. The 2002-2003 NBA season, the Denver Nuggets had the worst record along with the Cleveland Cavaliers. They got the 3rd overall pick. Cleveland got number 1. Swap that. What happens? Those Denver Nuggets teams, could you imagine LeBron James with Allen Iverson? Or LeBron James with Chauncey, the young,
assuming
really good
J.R.
Smith, Marcus Camby, DPOY. I mean, Kenny Marr, who was okay, but he had injuries, but he was still really good. Like, those teams probably win a championship, at least one. Let's go to the 2009 Western Conference Finals. And in Game 1, you're up against Kobe and the Lakers, and Anthony Carter throws a terrible inbounds pass, gives the Lakers an easy bucket, they lose. Game 1. That was in LA. That gives you home court advantage. That puts you in that series easily, right? That goes to 7. Or maybe you win it in 6. Who knows? Look, the Nuggets made it to the playoffs how many straight years? 9 in the first round, or 10 or 11. But at least with Melo, you can't get past the first round again with Allen Iverson and Melo because, by the way, you talk about all the teams you have to play. Oh, you have to play Kobe a bunch. You have to play the great San Antonio Spurs.
Utah.
Same with
Darren
Denver.
Williams, Carlos Boozer.
How many times did Denver lose to San Antonio in the first round? How many times did Denver lose to the Lakers in those runs? The Phoenix Suns aren't the only small to mid-market team that has gotten screwed over the last 20, 30 years. And let's talk about this too. You were never going to beat Michael Jeffrey Jordan, okay? I almost cussed there. You were never going to beat Michael Jordan. You were never going to beat Kobe Bryant. You were never going to beat Popovich and Tim Duncan. You were never going to beat LeBron James. That was never going to happen. So get over it. Your play style with Steve Nash and Mike D'Antoni, that was never going to work. Just like the play style with George Karl was never going to work. There's a reason why it didn't work. You didn't have you're running pick and roll playing no defense. Steve Nash is a Hall of Fame point guard. I get it. You were never going to win with him being your best player. It was never going to happen. So get over yourself. So look, it's unfortunate how the NBA works, right? For the small to mid-market teams or the teams that don't have the best or second best player in the whole entire world. It's just how it works. You are never going to beat those guys, and no one will unless this happens. Unless all of those players are injured. LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Klay Thompson, Giannis,
Jamal.
I'm not even mentioning Jamal. I'm mentioning the top 5 players in the league. 3 of them were hurt. And some guys can't AD and be in the top 5. Okay, if you're going down the list, some people put Kawhi in the top 5. Some people, everyone puts LeBron in the top 5. Most people put AD in the top 5. Most people put Giannis. 4 of the top 5 players in the league were injured. The 5th, his second best player was out, couldn't even get to the playoffs. What are we talking about here?
First round, yeah.
The Phoenix Suns don't deserve this because they've gone through hell the last 30 years. I'm sorry, 25 other teams are right there with you. Get over it.
Well, and listen, you didn't even mention the year that the Nuggets made it to the playoffs and lost to Utah because, they didn't have George Karl, who's undergoing chemo, right?
Coach of the year the next year.
The year in 2013 where the Nuggets had the best record in the NBA, I think. And Gallinari tears his ACL.
Yep.
And Ty Lawson hurts his ankle. So and Fareed is hurt.
You can talk about Rajah Bell got hurt or whatever the crap with Rajah Bell. Steve, I don't remember Steve Nash getting hurt. If he was, sure. But again, like I said, you were never going to beat Kobe Bryant. Are you kidding me? Don't give me that crap. You were never going to beat Tim Duncan in that Spurs team. Don't give me that crap.
3 Hall of Famers.
You were never
4.
You were never gonna beat the greatest power forward of all time, the second greatest, or one of the top 5 greatest power forward of all time in Dirk, the second greatest shooting guard of all time. You were never going to beat those players.
Yeah.
Don't say you deserve this. Oh, Phoenix deserve. No. And by the way, and all the Chris Paul deserves this. Come on.
I'm glad you mentioned that too.
Come on.
Can I just tag in here?
This year is not a Lifetime Achievement Award for Chris Paul. I'm so over this Lifetime Achievement Awards for Chris Paul. Dan Marino didn't win one. Peyton only got 2. Brett Favre only got 1. Aaron Rodgers has only gotten 1. Great players don't win all the time. And a lot of great players never win. Charles Barkley, for example. Get over it. Yeah. Chris Paul doesn't deserve this.
Well, here's the thing, too. I saw, and one person who I've just found kind of just really tough to just listen to anything he says and take it with, validity is Kendrick Perkins. Because he flips more than a pancake at IHOP. 1 week it was Jokic's MVP. The next week, Chris Paul should have been MVP. Chris Paul deserved for what he did this year, taking that young team. Yeah, he did turn around a culture. Yeah, he did turn around a young team. But he didn't have to go through anybody. Yeah. He went through logos, not the actual players. That's what the Phoenix Suns did here. They went through the logos of really good teams, but not the actual players of the really good teams that they had to face.
But Chris Paul, he got hurt in Houston. He got hurt with the Clippers, and Blake Griffin got hurt.
And he got hurt this year too, right? That was another one. Oh, well, what about Chris Paul's injury? How many games did Chris Paul miss because of injury? Not COVID, injury. I'll answer that for you. 0. You want to know what Chris Paul averaged in the regular season? Okay, his average in the regular season was let me pull it back up. It was 16.4 points per game, 8.9 assists, 4.5 rebounds. He was injured. He didn't do as good in the playoffs. You want to know what Chris Paul has averaged in this playoffs? 19.6 points. That's 3 more than what he averaged in the regular season. 8.9 assists. That's the same as what he averaged in the regular season. And 4 rebounds. 0.5 less than what he averaged in the regular season.
They are not there because of Chris Paul. They are there because of injuries, and Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton have played great in spots. That's why they're there.
Well, and their role players have played outstanding. Jay Crowder has played out of his mind. Mikal Bridges has played well when he's needed to.
But here's the thing.
Ayton has played the best ball of his life.
When do role players and young players struggle? When they're under pressure. The Phoenix Suns haven't been under pressure where everything is on them, that it's a win or go home. They're down, they're going through adversity. They haven't had to deal with anything because the one time they did, when Chris Paul got his shoulder injured, right? The one time it did happen, the next game Anthony Davis got hurt. And then it was all of a sudden you had the momentum back. And by the way, Chris Paul never missed the game. So the one
And
time
he still played that game, and he still played well
right.
at the end to close out the game.
And here's the you can't tell me that the COVID stuff with Chris Paul was adversity because Kawhi Leonard was out.
Right.
It
And he
didn't
still got taken to
matter.
6 games. Yeah.
A top 5 player was out.
This is what this year's been, and I guarantee you, because if this was the Nuggets or even LeBron, could you imagine if this was LeBron's path to the finals?
Oh, he'd be getting killed.
He didn't have to face anybody. I mean, we've heard it all his career. He was in the East. Who did he have to face to get to the finals? It was an easy path.
I don't know.
Is
I mean,
this
the
not an
big
easy
three
path?
Boston Celtics team, Derrick
Right.
Rose MVP
But, like,
season. I
Is
don't
this
know.
not at the bare minimum the equivalent of that?
Oh,
When you don't have to
it's-
face anybody's top players?
It's not even.
I
It's not
mean-
even close to being equivalent. It's way worse.
It's a joke. If I guarantee you, if they did not have Chris Paul on this team, everybody would be saying this. And I haven't heard one yesterday. I sent it to you. And this is a guy that we both have not agreed with at all.
I hate the
Rob
guy.
Parker. Rob Parker is the only person in the national media that has come out and said, "This is fugazi." This was his exact words in his Deadspin article. This is fugazi. This is a fluke. This is smoke and mirrors. Because they haven't had to play anybody. Nobody else is saying that. And I guarantee you it's because Chris Paul is on the team and everybody's like, you know what?
Well, he
Let's give
deserves
Chris
it.
one.
It's
He
a
deserves a
Lifetime
championship.
Achievement Award.
And you know what? Chris Paul's been a great player in this
He
league.
is.
I don't have the affinity that a lot of people do. I think he's been a great player. Obviously, he's a Hall of Fame
I
player.
wanted Chris
But,
Paul here in Denver.
Right, but I'm not like, you know what? This one should be Chris's. You know what? I would have liked to see him win a championship, but not in a way where it's just gift wrapped and handed to you. There's no resistance here. They had to go through no resistance. And you brought up the small and mid-market team. This, I think, if Phoenix wins the championship, which I think they ultimately will, because I don't think Giannis will be healthy at all. And even if he does come back, I don't think he'll be even close to what he can be. This is the worst thing that can happen for small to mid-market teams, because now it's going to be, those teams can only win when everything is favored
Perfect.
their way, when nobody plays, when things go perfect, just like you said. And again, if we're going to slam the bubble for being a fluke because, they didn't play the entire season, they got months of rest, well, they didn't have to go travel anywhere. Okay, well, how can we call this season legit when you didn't play a full season? You didn't have full capacities at stadiums, so and most of the season you were playing in empty arenas, right? So how can we call and it's a condensed season at that, so teams are getting injured. So how can we validate this season's championship and not the bubbles? They both have to have asterisks.
And here's
in
the
my
thing.
mind.
Here's the thing. Okay, this season, I don't think people will really start to call it a fluke until we see what happens next year in the playoffs. And what's going to happen next year in the playoffs? Phoenix will be out in round 2.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they get bounced in round 1 or round 2, then that's really gonna be like, maybe that probably was pretty fluky what happened last year. Listen, again, this has been a slander Phoenix Suns podcast, but they're a really good team.
Well, here's the
But
thing.
I don't think it's...
We would be saying this about any team in their situation. It's not just.
Yes.
It's unfortunate that we have had guys from Phoenix, Phoenix fans, a podcast group on our podcast, and we've been on theirs. So it's a bit unfortunate. It's a weird timing thing. But if it was the Houston Rockets, if it was damn sure if it was the Utah Jazz.
I think it's fluky that Milwaukee is here.
Yeah, right,
So,
exactly.
I mean, Brooklyn took them to 7 with Kevin Durant
You know
playing
what's-
with a hobbled James and no Kyrie.
Right, and if Atlanta makes it to the finals, it'll be fluky that they made it to the finals. It's not look,
Phoenix, Atlanta, really?
like it was
Really?
never gonna happen if teams were all healthy. There's a reason. I mean, go before the season. Go look at the damn playoff odds. Go look at the playoff odds right when the playoffs started. They were both not even in top 5. Probably not even top 10 for Atlanta. Look, it's unfortunate that we have to do this. It really sucks. It's not like I'm having fun here slandering the Phoenix Suns because
It's just the truth,
because I
though.
really like Phoenix. I really liked their team. I love Devin Booker. Devin Booker is one of my favorite players in the league. I love Chris Paul. I wanted Chris Paul in Denver. DeAndre Ayton, I've been so excited for him to just click, right? Like, I've been waiting for him to click because with the second he was going to click, Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton were going to be really good and a top 5 team in the Western Conference. And I said it before the season. If it clicks for DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker figures it out and is not just a scorer, then they're going to go places. And they're going to make some noise in the playoffs, and they're going to grow up a lot in the playoffs to where next year and the year after that and the year after that, they're going to be legitimate threats. But not this year. You got to go through it. You got to go
There was
through it.
nothing to go through.
And look, I've said the same thing about the Nuggets. Okay, 2 years ago they were the number 2 seed. They were just the same exact thing happened with Phoenix. Right? They got a veteran to come in and kind of get the young guys to grow up a little. They get the number 2 seed. They're the hottest team in the league. They lose in the second round. Why? Because they run into teams with more experience. Right? That's
And I
why
think
they
were
lost.
better than that
They
Portland
were
team.
better than Portland, but they lost because they didn't have experience because their 2 best players were in their first playoff run. Same thing with Phoenix, right? 2 seed, they had a veteran come over, get these young guys to grow up a bit. Hottest team in the league, well, right there with Utah, and
They got the greatest bounce of all time.
they were supposed to lose in the first round, but I thought it was a good thing to have to lose to the Lakers, to have to lose to LeBron, because that's how you grow. You see what they do. You see how they play in the playoffs. You see their intensity level. You see how they play under pressure. But the Phoenix Suns haven't been able to see any of that because none of them are playing. And they haven't been able to, and unfortunately, I'll also say this is unfortunate for Phoenix because now what's going to happen is they're going to have a unrealistic point of view of how the playoffs work, especially Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton, to where next year, if everything is, if everyone's healthy, they're playing, a healthy Laker team, a healthy Clipper team, a healthy Nuggets team, they're going to get their ass kicked at some point because they think it's easy. They're not experiencing the adversity. They're not experiencing the under pressure, close game after close game after I mean, those games are tiring. The triple overtime game in game 3 and having to come back 2 games later and in another must-win game. They're not going through that. It's easy for them. They're not having to deal with LeBron James who's just hitting bucket after bucket after bucket, and he's just grinding you down. They're not dealing. They're not going through Jamal Murray hitting these absurdly, or Donovan Mitchell already hitting these absurdly ridiculous threes, and you're just like, this dude doesn't miss. This is ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
You're not going through these games where you pull away up by 8 all of a sudden, and with 2 minutes to go, you're up by 8. All of a sudden, it's a 2-point game with 30 seconds to go, and it's just game after game. You're dealing with this stuff. No, you know what it is? Yeah, you've gotten that game once or twice in the whole playoffs, right? What, 2 games against the Clippers like that, and one or two against the Lakers, but it's not the same because Kawhi Leonard's out. Anthony Davis is out. LeBron James is hobbled. It's not the same.
No.
Even when you were in those moments. And those moments are only happening like in the playoffs, those games are every game. In the regular season, it's like 1 every 10 games, which is what it's been like for Phoenix. This has been a regular season playoff run for them because they're playing teams that have guys out, and they're not playing these ultra intense games every single night. So
No.
I feel bad for Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton because next year when they really do experience it, they're going to get their ass kicked. And then what's going to happen? The national media, and including Phoenix media probably, will just kill them. And what is that going to do to their confidence? I don't know. They're young. DeAndre Ayton's going to be 22, 23. So when he gets his ass kicked by Anthony Davis and Nikola Jokic and those guys, and then he starts getting killed by Shaq, gets killed by Charles Barkley, Stephen A. Smith going out there and just destroying these guys because they're not playing how they played this year. Well, not even. They haven't even played great. They played good, not great every night because they haven't had
Well,
to.
Aiden's in a contract year.
Right. So
So,
what's going to
like, how
happen
does
when
that-
they get absolutely punched in the face? They're going to
Yeah.
get their ass kicked next year.
There's been no adversity. There's been no resistance.
Not to
And
mention
again,
that if they do win the championship, they'll be defending champions. So not only
Right.
are teams going to be playing even harder against them, but those teams are going to be better than them.
I mean, come on. You don't think that within circles? I mean, Paul George already came out and said if Kawhi was here, we'd be moving on. You don't think within circles players
yeah.
are talking like, dude, this ain't real?
Phoenix is going to
Like,
get their
they're-
ass kicked next year.
They're,
a
they're
lot of
just
games.
they're winning because nobody's healthy. You don't think that's being discussed by players right now? And that's a great point you make too. You already have a target on your back when you're a champion, right? Teams want to give you their best shot. They're getting you on TNT, so they want to show out and show everybody, yeah, we're legit. We just beat the champions. But then on top of that, you have the extra motivation of not only are you the champion, but you shouldn't have even won. So I'm going to try and humiliate you and show everybody that was a fluke.
Yep.
Like, I'm just trying to relate it as a Nuggets fan. If I was a Nuggets fan and they had this path
I'd be
and they
terrified.
won, well, I would not even so much that, but I would be like, dude, we didn't. I'd feel defensive because I feel like, man, we were the second seed, but we didn't even get to validate how good
Yeah.
we were because we didn't beat anybody. We beat everybody's scraps. That's what we beat. Yeah, we're a champion. Yeah, that's cool. 20 years from now, it's just going to say Phoenix Suns champion. There's not going to be context. But people who know, it's just like, this is, like I said, it's the but championship. Yeah, you won, but everybody, literally every team you played had their first or second or both out.
Well, I'll say
Or
this.
hobbled.
It's funny. I saw a video on YouTube. I was just kind of going through stuff, and I saw the last minute of every NBA championship for the last, 25, 30 years, or I think it was like, it might have been 50 years. And I was watching, and I got to actually the Spurs' first championship. That year was a lockout year. And so a lot of people put an asterisk on that year, right? So the next year, they didn't win it the next year, but the year after that, they won it. And I forget who was calling the game, but he said, not word for word, I can't remember, I'm not quoting him exactly, but he said this validates the championship from 2 years ago. And if people were holding on to a grudge for that, what do you think is going to happen with this?
Right.
So if you want to validate this year, you
gotta do
have
it next
to
year.
win it next year, not just 2 years from now. Because what are people going to say 2 years? If let's say hypothetically, Phoenix loses in the first or second round next year, then they win it the year after that. Well, what I'm going to say about this championship this year is, well, yeah, because you were supposed to win it in 2-3 years. That was supposed to be your window, right? You're winning it when you were supposed to. 2 years ago, you weren't supposed to win that still. That doesn't validate your win 2 years ago. You have to do it next year. You have to do it right away because now all that pressure is on you. Now everyone is healthy, if hopefully everyone is healthy. And you pretty much, hopefully, have pretty much the same exact team. Hopefully Chris Paul doesn't leave. And because if Chris Paul leaves, then they're never going to be able to validate it. But that's, you have to do it next year because essentially the same thing, right? Your guys are still young. They haven't gone through it yet still. So if they do it in a real year one, then that validates this year, right?
Yeah. I think for me, and this is just for me, I think if Phoenix doesn't at least make it to the Western Conference Finals next year, then I already think this is a fluke, regardless of what happens in the future. But if they don't if they make it to the Western Conference Finals next year,
they have to make it to the finals. They have to make it to the finals.
I think for me, it's just the Western Conference Finals because it's like, okay, that at least validates some of it. Like, I know they're a good team, but like, can they do it? Can they really do it?
I guess it
the
depends
pressure's
on. I guess it depends on the road to that Western Conference Finals, right? Because if they're beating, let's say they beat the Denver Nuggets, let's say they beat the LA Clippers, championship contenders, like a Golden State, right?
Mhm.
And then let's say they lose to LeBron in a 6-7 game series, then sure. But if they get kind of Atlanta's run where no everyone was healthy, but they were legitimate better than those teams, like if they got Portland and I don't know, Dallas, right? The same Dallas team. Then it's like, well, okay, you should have beaten those teams. But then if they get their ass kicked in the Western Conference Finals, no, it doesn't validate it at all. So context, again.
Yeah. I just, like you said, it's unfortunate that we've befriended Suns fans this year.
Yeah.
But it's just, if this was any team,
If it was any team, we'd be saying the same thing.
if it was the Clippers,
If it was the Nuggets, we'd be saying
if
the
it was
same thing.
LeBron, okay, people would be saying this, which is why I'm shocked that we're not seeing it in the national media. That the only
Chris
person that's
Paul.
come out is Rob Parker,
It's
and
Chris
that's
Paul.
why I think it's Chris Paul. But if this was Utah, it would be like, dude, this is a fluke. If this was Denver, especially if this was Denver, because they've been trying to knock down Jokic's MVP and discredit him in this team ever since that happened. If this was Denver, it'd be like, oh, this doesn't even matter. This doesn't even matter at all.
Here's the thing.
This is a facade.
We'd be saying the same thing, though. We're not just
100%.
We're not just salty because we lost to Phoenix. Denver was never gonna beat Phoenix, and we both said that if Phoenix takes care of business and does what they're supposed to do, that's a 4 or 5 game series. But if they screw around and let Denver stick around, then it gets interesting in Game 7, right? We both said that, but but we both thought that, you know, if as long as Phoenix takes care of business, which they did, they're gonna win easily because Denver didn't have anyone. They couldn't.
You don't have the horses.
They couldn't. They had their second best, in my opinion, their best scorer out. Maybe not points per game wise, but their best scorer out. They had their fourth best scorer out, and a very important wing defender that would have helped against Devin Booker, would have helped against Chris Paul. So, they never had a shot. So it's not like being a salty Nuggets fans, you know, hoping that the Suns lose. I'm not hoping that the Suns lose. I'm just saying that if it was just the Nuggets series, and if they had beaten the Lakers legitimately, if they had beat the Clippers legitimately, then I'd be like, okay, you know,
we have nothing to say.
We have nothing to say, right? We would just look like salty Nuggets fans, right?
You did it the right way. You beat those teams at their best.
Yeah,
That's what you did.
You got a break in the second round, but most teams do get a break at some point in a round. Not every round, including the finals, by the way.
Every round. Every single round. I just
if what would if Giannis was healthy and say Milwaukee took care of business in 5 like they should have and Giannis was healthy, okay? Because they would have won Game 4 if Giannis had stayed in. It was a close game. I think they were down by like 3 or 4 when Giannis went down, and then Atlanta obviously took off. Obviously, so if you know Milwaukee took care of business in 5, what would be your pick?
If it's Milwaukee Phoenix in the finals?
Yeah.
And
everyone healthy. I mean, I don't think this is hard. I think Milwaukee wins in 5.
I'm just not big on Milwaukee because I don't buy Giannis's chances in the playoffs as much as other people. So I think that's actually a favorable matchup for Phoenix.
Oh, I
personally.
don't think so because I don't think Phoenix has a remember, and we talked about this in the Nuggets series. Behind DeAndre Ayton, they don't have anyone. Milwaukee has a ton of size. a ton of size.
Yeah.
You know,
Now, here's where I think it gets interesting is that Milwaukee presents the same sort of defenders that Phoenix can, right? So like,
Right.
oh, we have Mikhail J. Crowder. Well, Drew Holiday, PJ Tucker, Giannis, Chris Middleton is nothing to sneeze at defensively. Like
Right.
he's solid. And these guys can put pressure. It's not only that guys have
that's
been
the
hurt
thing.
against Phoenix, right?
It's
The guys that
pressure.
have been hurt against Phoenix are the guys that can put pressure on them offensively.
And that's why we're talking about youth, right? Because when you put that pressure on those young guys in their first playoff run, more than likely, no matter how great they are, no matter
Devin Booker's been able to hide.
exactly,
on
you're
guys.
gonna those guys are going to shrink in the playoffs, no matter how great they are. Michael Jordan did it, Kobe Bryant did it, LeBron James did it. Those guys are going to shrink because they're young. They're in their first run. Those guys are expected to do so. It's not a bad thing that happens, right? Jamal Murray, it happened to him. Michael Porter Jr., it happened to him this year, right? Great young players. Kevin Durant, great young players will shrink when the pressure is put on them to be great. They're capable of being great, but they're not used to being great in that level. Especially, look at the finals, OKC and Miami, right? LeBron had figured it out. So now LeBron was able to put that type of pressure on Kevin Durant. You have to be great every single night, every single second of that game. And not only that, but
On both ends.
on both ends and in closing moments. And that's when the pressure is mostly on you in those closing moments. And that's why those players shrink. Game 7 against Portland, first run for the Nuggets. Jamal Murray, he was the guy that was closing it out for most nights, right? Jokic was doing his thing, but Jamal Murray was hitting the tough shots. He did it against San Antonio. But San Antonio didn't have a guy on the other end to put that type of pressure on Jamal to have to hit those shots every single time down. Look what happened in Game 7 against Portland. CJ McCollum was doing it, right? Hitting tough shot after tough shot after tough shot. Jamal Murray just couldn't do it because the pressure was on him to do it. And he just couldn't. It's his first run. He's 22 years old. That's expected to happen to him. Let's look at the Phoenix run. It's not like Devin Booker's putting up 40 a night, right? He's not doing it every night. You're actually seeing a great young player doing it in spots. Even against lesser talent, he's still only doing it in spots. It's not like he's putting up 40 a night. Now, he's put up those 40-point games, but that's expected, right? A great young player will have those games, but they can't do it every night. And you're seeing that. You'll go look at his stats. Now, some games he doesn't have to because he's not playing half the damn game because, well, it's a blowout because it's easy. But in a lot of the games, too, where he's playing 36 to 40 minutes, he's only putting up 27 and 5 or 24 and 3. Like, he can't do it every night, and he shouldn't be expected to do it every night because it's his first playoff run, and he's 24, 25 years old. So it's expected to happen to him. But you're also not supposed to get to the finals playing like that. You have to play, in Game 6, a closeout game against the Lakers. He has to play like that every single night if all things are healthy, if all players are healthy. He has to play like that every single night. And there was no way, as great as he is, he has the talent to do it. But in his first playoff run, he's not going to do that.
Well, and here's a couple things, too, that I'll say. I'm glad you mentioned Jamal in that first playoff run. CJ McCollum was carrying that game in Game 7. So was Evan Turner. Damian Lillard didn't particularly play well. But who was Jamal guarding? Do you remember? Who also had a really good game?
Dame.
No. It was Rodney Hood.
Rodney
in Game
Hood,
7.
that's right, Rodney Hood.
Rodney Hood. So they had guys on the other end, Portland, to put pressure on the Nuggets' best players. Who did we see put pressure on Devin Booker in spurts early in the series with the Nuggets? It was Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
And I'll harken back to when I was on with those guys when we were previewing the Nuggets-Phoenix series, and I told them, and again, I've said this multiple times, no one gave me pushback on that podcast that was full of Suns fans and a Blazers fan. Okay? If the Nuggets were healthy, I said this, they'd be coming out of this series in most likely the West. Nobody gave me pushback. Nobody disagreed. Everybody actually, for the most part, agreed on that. If the Nuggets were healthy, okay, who's guarding who? Because Devin Booker, you're not hiding him on Will Barton, because Will Barton can score. Are you putting him on Jamal? Because Jamal can score on him. Are you putting him on MPJ? Because MPJ will score on him. Are you putting him on Aaron Gordon? We saw how that worked. You're not obviously putting him on Jokic. So the further you go in the playoffs, you can't hide your guys anymore, because the better teams have players that can make your best players pay. So listen,
Well,
man.
and it's not just Devin Booker. Look at DeAndre Ayton. When in the first round against the Lakers, right? The Lakers were up 2-1, but game 3 specifically, or at least look at the 2 games that the Lakers won. AD had put up 30 plus, 10 plus rebounds, and 2 or 3 blocks in both of those games, right? And look what DeAndre Ayton. Anthony Davis put pressure on DA to have to be great, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't match that. And why? Because you're having to guard that guy on the other end. So on the offensive end, you're probably exhausted. Or if you're trying to take off on the defensive end because you need that energy on the offensive end, you're going to get crushed defensively. So it's not just the pressure mentally, it's also the pressure physically. And Phoenix hasn't had either of them. They haven't had the pressure physically, they haven't had the pressure mentally. No. And so you can't just say that this is legitimate. You can't, because they haven't had to deal with all of that. And you can't point to a single young player in their first playoff run, let alone the 2 best players in the – don't give me this crap about Chris Paul being the best player on that team. Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton are the 2 best players and 2 most important players on the Phoenix Suns. They were going to go as far as – the Phoenix Suns were going to go as far as Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton could take them. And – when your best 2 players are in their first playoff run, give me another team that has done that to make it to the finals with the 2 best players being in their first playoff run. The only example that I could really think of is Magic as a rookie, but he had Kareem and James Worthy. So it's like, well, the other guys were all of famers. So yeah, Magic as a rookie won those games, but also, okay, another one's Kyrie also. But when those players have a Hall of Famer next to them, that's in their prime, that's also in their prime, and is the best or second best player on the team, that's putting up 25 plus a night, it's different, right? It becomes easier.
Yeah, Chris Paul, they're icing. They're not the cake.
Right. Chris Paul is a great point guard, top 10 of all time. I don't know about top 5 like people are saying. Top 10 of all time. But he's also 35, 36 years old. He's also only putting up 19 a game, right? Your best player, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton are the reasons why you've gotten this far. Not Chris Paul. Chris Paul hasn't played that well. The reason why he's at 19 points per game is because he's had 2 40-plus point games or 2 30-plus point games. Well, that's up to that average a little bit. And he was great in those moments. But don't give me that they lose that game if Chris Paul doesn't do so. They might, but they also win those series anyways. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's just it's unfortunate because I don't know if our points will be taken as objectively as they should be, but no. It's just the fact of the situation. And listen, nobody else besides I've only seen me, you, and Rob Parker say this. So, I mean, I'm sure other fans and, Lakers fans and Clippers fans probably feel the same way. And maybe other teams in the West probably feel this way. And I'm sure players feel this way too. It sucks that this championship won't be won legitimately. I mean, in the sense that they didn't have to go through anybody. It's the most healthy award. That's what this championship is. Yeah. It's the most healthy award.
It's a bummer because it's not just bad for the other teams, but it's also bad for the league, and it's bad for Phoenix. It's bad for Devin Booker. It's just bad for all
of us teams that are like small to mid markets.
It's bad for everyone. It may be great for the fans right now, but what comes around goes around. It's gonna hurt next year because you're gonna get. It doesn't matter if you're healthy or not. The Phoenix is gonna have a massive target on their back, and there's gonna be games. And if they have to play a healthy Lakers team, or a healthy Nuggets team, or a healthy Clippers team, or even a healthy Golden State team, those teams are gonna do everything they can to just kill Phoenix. They're gonna Phoenix if things go the way I think it will, and all teams are healthy, Phoenix is gonna get embarrassed. They're gonna get embarrassed, and it's gonna suck for Phoenix, and I feel bad for them because they don't deserve that. You know, they took what was given, right? And credit to them, they took what was given. They did what they were supposed to do. But next year, you're going to have a massive target on your back. And when they do lose in the first or second round, this championship this year, that's when it's going to be called fluky. And it's going to suck. It's going to suck for Phoenix fans. Enjoy it now because it's not going to be fun next year. It's not.
It's just, I don't know.
And look, if they want to validate it, win next year. Get to the finals next year.
There you go. Yeah, for me, just make it to the Western Conference Finals. That's all I think you have to do. But again, you're going to have Golden State back. The Nuggets won't be all the way back until late next season. But who knows what Dallas is going to do? You know, who knows what's going to happen with Kawhi? Could he leave the Clippers? But for the most part, the West will be pretty stacked. You know, Portland, it'll be interesting to see what Chauncey Billups brings to them. You know, Damian was spotted hanging out with LeBron James at a Sparks game, which obviously creates controversy there.
I think this is Dame's last run in Portland. I think this is his last year.
I don't know.
Because I don't think it works with Chauncey, unfortunately. So at least they can't go out and get anyone that puts them over the top. So
well, they have to shake it up. That team has reached its peak.
But in year one, that's not going to work, and then Dame's going to be like, okay, I mean, I need to do something. So
well, it depends on what they can get. But I mean, the piece you're trading is C.J. McCollum, and I mean that's not going to command a top 10 superstar.
No.
So
this is Dame's last year in Portland. So it'll be interesting to see if he. I'm telling you, if he becomes available, the Nuggets should be offering MPJ and whatever. Don't give up Jamal, but MPJ, whoever else for
I don't know
Dame.
if that works. Damian, Jamal.
Well, here's the, I think MPJ's
works.
value will be very high because I think MPJ comes out and averages 25 plus.
That's a whole separate podcast. I'm still angry at him. I want to talk about it.
Well, hey, young player in his first legitimate playoff run, being the second best player, you saw what was supposed to happen to Phoenix happen to MPJ. That was what was supposed to happen. Yeah. It happens with young guys. That's what happened with Jamal. Now MPJ was worse than Jamal, but it happens. Young players struggle in the first round of the playoffs when they get pressure put on them, and there was a lot of pressure on MPJ.
And speaking of MPJ too, allegedly he got his back tweaked in that series. So there's another micro injury for you there.
Yeah, I think it was a different thing though.
Yeah, maybe. Hopefully. All right. You have anything else you'd like to touch on before we ditch today?
No, I think we've said everything we've wanted to say about Phoenix. You got a vent. I got a vent.
I got a vent. Listen. I think it's fluky too. Milwaukee's here. Just to close on the way, just to reiterate, because I know this has been a majority of us, just crapping on Phoenix, even though I think we have valid points. It is fluky
that Milwaukee, but I also made the argument of Milwaukee could beat Brooklyn before that series started. But healthy. I at least can make an argument. There was no argument. Phoenix was never going to beat Phoenix, Denver, or the Clippers, so that was never going to happen. Lakers, Lakers, Denver, and the Clippers. I didn't even make an argument. I couldn't make an argument for them to beat them, right? I said how they could, but there was no way that was going to happen because.
And their fans that we talked to didn't make an argument either.
Exactly, but I at least could make an argument for Milwaukee.
Yeah.
But yes, Milwaukee being in the finals.
Was a smart one.
Milwaukee being in the final, they weren't going to beat Brooklyn. Kevin Durant was ridiculous. I think, honestly, I think I forgot how good. Well, I don't want to say I forgot. I just didn't.
Well, you did.
I wasn't sure if he could do it again.
No, I told you he would, and he did.
I mean, that was absurd what he did.
The interesting question is there a new best player in the league? That's the interesting question.
Well, I think that's going to be up for grabs next year.
Yeah, because I think now more so than ever.
Yep, more so than ever, it's up
That's,
for grabs. I would say the guys that can take it next year, you have to put LeBron in it. He could prove to come back and be the best player
Sure.
again. KD.
Mhm.
I think Giannis is because Giannis has gotten better every. Now it hasn't been massive, but he has gotten better every year. So he's in the conversation, is what I'm saying. Luka, but Luka has to learn how to be a teammate. His assist numbers are high. That's great, but he needs to learn how to be a good teammate. Jokic, I think, should be in that list. He won MVP. Who else am I missing?
I think that's pretty much
oh,
it
Devin
in terms
Booker.
of players.
Devin Booker, I think has a chance.
I think there's really
if
only
you-
3 players that can hold best player in the league.
But
mantle.
if someone came from the future in a year and a half and told me, hey, Devin Booker proved that he's the best player in the league and he won MVP in the 21-22 season, I wouldn't be shocked.
I would, because he still has a long way to go defensively. That's why
Sure.
I think the Kobe Bryant comparisons. I'm just like, I mean, I get it offensively, yes,
Offensively, yeah.
but I
Kobe
would
was
say
great defensively.
the closest to Kobe that we've seen, game wise, is probably Kawhi. Mid range defense,
But not
obviously
mentality.
Kawhi's a little bit bigger. Well, right, but I'm just saying, just game. A two-way player who scores in the mid range, who can obviously step out to 3, but defensively, I think it's Kawhi.
Yeah.
Devin Booker, I mean, he's got some ways to go.
Devin
on that end.
Booker, I think, is as far as size wise, just all of the things that he does as well. I think he's on that list too. Kawhi's a good one. I would also say Kyrie, not the size, but Kyrie mentally and the mid range game and what he can do. If Kyrie was 4 inches taller, I mean, honestly, if Kyrie was 4 inches taller, he'd probably be the best player in the world.
Offensively, well, I mean, there's still Kevin, so
Yeah. But
don't know
I
if he'd be
think
best
I think
Kevin.
4 inches taller Kyrie is a better defender at that point, right? Being taller, longer.
Has he ever been known for his defensive prowess?
I think when he played against Steph, he had the effort.
Well, but I mean, Dellavedova and Shumpert got a lot of that,
Sure.
though. So
Sure. But Kyrie,
I think
like mentality wise, Kyrie was there.
I'd say
Russ
there's only
too,
3
but-
players that can really take best player in the league. I think it's Kawhi. I think it's I don't
I-
even know if I'd put Kawhi in there
I
anymore,
wouldn't put
honestly.
Kawhi on there, no.
I think it's really just it's between Kevin and LeBron, and I think honestly Kevin might be it now. I really do.
My question
He's
is,
gonna have a short reign, but
he's got to do it all year.
I don't doubt that he can.
No,
I mean, that guy is insane.
but
He's
also too, I
insane.
think you have to win a championship too to be really like. Well, LeBron didn't have to win a championship to be on that list, but like, there's things that you have to do. Like, the reason why I put Devin Booker on the list is because if he wins it, if they win it, even though it's fluky, he has a finals win under his belt. He needs to win finals MVP, and then to come out next year and average 30 plus 5 and 5. If he
I don't
does
think he'll do
that, if he goes out and averages 31 or like right around 30, like 28 to 32 or 28 plus, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and he improves defensively, maybe not all defensively, but if he improves defensively and Phoenix is the number 1 or 2 seed, then yeah, he would win MVP. And then at that point, then if Phoenix goes on to get to the finals and validates what they did this year, then you can say Devin Booker is the best player on the planet at that point.
Yeah. You know what I am kind of excited about is this playoffs has really kind of validated the mid-range game again.
It'll be interesting. A guy on Denver who can 2 guys, Jamal Murray, who's great in the mid range, and then MPJ, if he could, get that in his head.
Step in.
Yeah, if he could step in and if he could take advantage of that, then yeah, they have 2 guys, not including Jokic. They have 2 guys who can really take advantage of that.
But yeah, it's been cool to just see because the mid range is so lethal. Obviously, the 3 is just
Yeah.
games can get blown open quick if you're hitting threes.
Right.
But the mid range, like seeing what Booker can do in the mid range, obviously we know what Kawhi can do. You mentioned Jamal, but I think it's starting to say, like, this can still win too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, you still need
I think what we're learning is you need a balance. It can't just be threes and layups. You need a balance between that. You know, the Houston experiment didn't work. You need a balance. Yeah. And with Golden State, they always had a balance. Yeah, they were so lethal from three because they had Steph and Clay, but Clay could hit from the mid-range. Steph hit from the mid-range. They had a balance. It wasn't just threes and layups. They also had a balance. So you have to have that, and I think that's what we've learned through the playoffs here is you know, Chris Paul and Devin Booker give Phoenix that they can hit threes, but they give them that balance in between. Donovan Mitchell has that balance in between. So you need that. Kawhi gives you that balance. So you need a balance. The mid-range game shouldn't be, you know, gone completely. You do need it. That's what it has shown. Now you can't. It's a
nice change of pace.
You can't win from only mid-range. We know that. No. But you also can't win from only threes.
Right.
So.
Right. The league is fun, man. I'm really excited to see.
When healthy, right. The league is fun.
The league is fun. Right now I say it because I know in a few months I'm going to hate it when we have to play them. But I'm excited to see Klay Thompson back.
Yeah.
And just that, I think this is like the last hurrah for Golden State, right? Maybe like their last year or two run at it. But I'm excited to see that back. But just
it'll be interesting
the
moves that Golden State makes, because I think if they have the 4th pick in the, or no, 7th pick in the 14th, I think. It'll be interesting to see what they do with those picks and James Wiseman. I've heard a lot of things. I've heard, what if they paired those picks, okay, and James Wiseman for Ben Simmons? So you have the shooting around Ben Simmons. Now you add the defense.
Bigger Draymond.
A bigger Draymond, still with Draymond. And then you go out and sign you got to go out and get a center. But, you know, you can figure that out.
I mean, they still have Looney.
Yeah, they have Kevin. Yeah, they have Looney. So you don't need James Wiseman. So, and you know he's going to struggle in the playoffs, right? So if you go out and get a guy like Ben Simmons, who's still young, but the problem is Philly wouldn't take James Wiseman. It would have to be a 3-team deal. So
right. Well, yeah, that wouldn't make sense for them to, you know. But I mean, they did have at one point like 7 centers on the roster.
They might
with Embiid and Okafor and Nerlens Noel.
Right.
So yeah. I mean, maybe they go back to that.
I think
maybe
if you
just enlarge the process.
Okay, 3-team trade: Golden State, Washington, Philly. Beal goes to Philly. All the picks in James Wiseman goes to Washington. And Ben Simmons goes to Golden State. There's your 3-team deal. Benefits all the teams.
I don't know if the contracts match up, but you might be onto something. You don't say a lot of smart things, but that was pretty smart. I think that's like the 5th smart thing I've heard you say in my entire friendship with you. So that's actually pretty good. Put it in the NBA 2K trade machine.
What's the NBA trade? Hold on. Before we go, this is the last thing we'll do because I'm curious if that works.
While you're playing that, I'm just excited for the guards. Like, the guards are just fun in the NBA. I mean, Jamal, Devin. I really enjoy watching Donovan Mitchell play. I know he's a volume guy, but he is just... he's a killer. He's a killer. Trae Young, even though he's a bit up and down at points, but when he gets going, his floater is... I mean, that just is a problem in itself. I mean, because you drop on him, he's pulling the 3. You play him up, he's quick enough to get past you. You know, if the guard gets through the screen and he's chasing him, there's a floater. If you pull up and drop, that's a alley-oop to Capella. I'm like, oh my gosh.
So I don't know if you can add the draft picks. I don't know how to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, oh shoot!
So I said do it through 2K.
How do I remove a player? Oh, there we go.
That would work though. I mean, in theory, on paper, it sounds like it would work. you know,
So
I mean, you're Washington.
okay, so
you're looking
trade failed. The Warriors are over the luxury tax. Okay, so
I mean, but I think they go into
19
the luxury tax.
19 mil. I need to give. So you know what it would work? How it would work?
What about Andrew Wiggins?
I was just
or
gonna
Kelly
say.
Oubre?
So you give up Wiggins,
Where does he go though? Washington.
Washington, then it works. Would you do that trade though if you're Golden State, where you're giving up? I mean, I guess you could somehow keep Wiseman if you just give up the two firsts, maybe a future first, along with Wiggins. Does that work? It does work money wise. You would probably have to throw in Wiseman. I think if you could pull it off though to where you didn't have to, and because if Washington wants to just reset, you take Wiggins on as just, you know, a guy to have, but
Yeah.
you get the 2 firsts, maybe 3 firsts, 3 future firsts. Maybe you get a first from Philly as well, right? So now you're stacking up on first. I still think if I'm Washington, I would ask for Wiseman, but that works as well. If I throw in Wiseman to Washington, well, it doesn't work. Trade failed. They're 2 mil over the cap. So then you would have to give up. I mean, 2 mil. You can figure that out. You can give up, I don't know, whatever you want. They have a lot of crap players.
Yeah.
So
I've tried. That's an interesting one, Ben Simmons to Golden State, because obviously you start him outside of Steph and Clay. Where does your offense come from?
but you understand that Steph he can play off ball, right? So Ben Simmons can even
Yeah.
handle the ball if you want. Steph and Clay off ball? Are you kidding me? That's terrifying. And then as far as other scorers, you probably start Draymond. Oh, maybe you give up Kelly Oubre Jr. Maybe you do that instead of Wiggins, so you still keep Wiggins. Does that work?
I'm just worried about where their scoring comes
he's-
from outside of Steph and Clay.
Oh, I can't put him in here because he's on a 1-year deal. Well, I mean, Ben Simmons. Well, here's the thing. I also think that Ben Simmons would be better in that system, and he can still score in that system, because you can't just load the paint because you got Steph and Clay out there.
Right. Yeah.
So I think Ben Simmons all of a sudden has a free lane.
Yeah.
I
If he
think it
decides
works.
to take a jump shot.
Right. Well, I think it works, and you never know. Ben Simmons. Look, if you go back, I saw someone tweet this out yesterday. Go back and watch Ben Simmons in the summer league. He had a mid-range game. Like, he could score
Dude,
in the
I was
mid-range.
watching his high school mixtape, and he was pulling from 3, and I'm like, what happened?
I think it's just a
happened?
confidence thing. I think he needs a change
Yeah.
of scenery, and if you
Yeah.
put him with Golden State, that gives him confidence.
I'm actually, even though I've been crapping on him a little bit past few years, I'm actually kind of rooting for Ben Simmons, because when I saw the report come out that he's skipping the Olympics because he wants to get better, hopefully he really is, that kind of makes me actually root for the guy.
Right.
Because I'm like, okay,
Well, that's
Like, he
that's
knows
been-
now.
That was the report. I guess he just hasn't been willing to get better.
right.
He hasn't
He
been
doesn't
listening.
really care.
Yeah.
Like, I forgot, I might have been calling Coward that, the report was, or he was hearing some national guy like that was just hearing that Ben is just one of those guys where he's just kind of satisfied. And he just doesn't really have the urge to necessarily get better. Maybe now he's like, okay, I need to get better.
Right.
Otherwise,
Especially
I'm
if he's
just gonna
traded.
be.
This
Yeah.
trade works. This trade works really well. Now, here's the thing: would you give
It's
up?
interesting.
Would you give up Ben Simmons or would you give up MPJ for Ben Simmons? No, right?
Oh no, I don't want Ben Simmons here. Yeah, I just said I'm rooting for the guy. I'm not rooting for him that much. I don't want to actually root for him in a Nuggets uniform. So no. No.
I think Bradley Beal in Philly with Joel Embiid would be awesome. That would work.
Yeah, but I mean, it just is Embiid going to be healthy? Like,
Well,
that's the issue. At a certain point, I just feel like he's going to get hurt, and it's instead of him playing 60 games, it's going to be 40 games. I'm just worried we're on that course.
okay. Well, you say the same thing. I would say the same thing about Clay, though. I'm concerned. Can Clay play a
the
full
ACL
year?
was the first one, and then the Achilles. He probably came back a little too quick. But I mean, it's fair, 2 leg injuries back to back like that, 2 significant ones.
And he's now 30.
But the thing with Clay, though, is he's not like a high flyer.
Right.
His game is based purely off of shooting.
Yeah, Clay's 31
No.
now. If you're Golden State and the right offer comes and say,
You're Denver.
well, let's say Denver comes and says, we'll give you MPJ for Clay.
Ooh, mama, I'd be tempted to do that.
But see, I'm worried about the injuries. I am. Right? Or if you're Golden State, would you trade Clay
That's
for?
what you need. That's what you need is a shooter and a guy who could D up on the wing.
Yeah, but can he do all of that? Oh, he can shoot, but can he?
No.
Can he stay healthy?
Well, let's look at Clay's history. I mean, he's had 2 back-to-back injuries. I just think it's been unfortunate. He's not been injury prone.
No,
just
not
had 2
over the
back-to-back
course of his.
injuries.
No, the course of his career, he's been fine. But I don't know.
Would you trade MPJ for Klay Thompson? I think I would.
I traded MPJ for Bradley Beal
Well, of course I would too.
and Dame. Okay, well, if you're Portland,
I just don't think that works.
if you're Portland, would you trade? No, never mind.
I just don't think that
wouldn't work.
works. I don't think Jamal and Dame work. We're seeing Dame now with another guard, a combo guard. I
Yeah,
just
but
don't think it works.
they're both undersized. Jamal can play the 2. That's the difference. Is I'm moving Jamal to the 2
I just don't think it.
because Jamal's
It would be
6'4",
fun to watch
6'5".
Damian though. It would be fun to watch him. It'd be fun to watch those threes go in for us and not against us.
I don't know. Anyways, we can talk about all of that offseason.
The offseason's fun. NBA offseason is the best time.
Yeah.
It's like Christmas. Christmas in summer.
Yeah, and it comes quick this year because we got to go. We got to get moving. We're starting in October.
I know. And hopefully Jokic is resting up. Hopefully Serbia gets bounced in the qualifiers.
So he said he would play if they advance.
I mean, from what I understand, he was receiving a lot of heat in Serbia for his decision to not play. So part of me thinks that if they did qualify, he'd play. Which, again, I'm selfish, Serbia. I apologize, but I hope you get bounced. I hope Tunisia and, the Philippines, Argentina, I hope Facu dunks all over you. Okay? Like, I'm hoping you lose. But, yeah, hopefully he's just resting up. And, this is way ahead of, our Nuggets preview for next season. But I really hope this year taught Malone, too, that some regular seasons aren't worth winning, every game.
Yeah.
Like maybe we need to learn to rest the big fella a little bit. Maybe that's not him necessarily sitting out a game.
You missed that. You
but-
weren't on Twitter, but he said that they're gonna be looking at resting Jokic about 10 games a year, 10 to 15.
I just don't know how successful you'll be. I was just thinking, instead of 35, maybe some nights give him 28. If you're going to overtime
Well, but if
against
he's
Chicago
yeah,
on a Tuesday night,
but if that's not gonna happen if Jokic is actually playing, you have to sit him.
well,
If
Tranquilize him in the back, I don't know.
if he's dressed, he's gonna play and he's gonna play to
Well,
win. So
get
you
out
can't
the horse tranquilizer and shoot him in the hip.
you can't
and just-
you can't do it if he plays. So
Wheel him in the back.
you have to rest him in games, and so certain back-to-backs, 5 games in 7 nights, those type of things. Jamal and Jokic will probably rest about 10 to 15 games tonight.
Well, I mean, Jamal's going to be resting for the entire
Well,
season.
well,
So,
yes.
yeah, you don't need to worry about that one. So,
Have you been
MPJ,
seeing? Oh, well, I guess you're not
Okay.
on Twitter. I've been seeing a lot of videos. Jamal, he's gonna come back sooner than we think, and I'm nervous. But he's pushing.
I know he is. I bet he is.
That's just
I mean,
that's Jamal for you.
A month after the surgery, he was on the bench jumping, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Well, yeah, and he's out there
Please.
shooting threes off 1 foot. He's gonna come back with the.
Kitchen or shuffle.
But he's gonna come back sooner than I think we think he will. He shouldn't, but I have a feeling he comes back right around All-Star, which is about a year for him. So it's not the
a
worst
year would
thing.
be April. Because he tore it in April.
Yeah, it's almost a year, 11 months. If I'm guessing it's a normal season, so All-Star break would be around March,
I don't know when the
right?
All-Star
Or
break
late
is.
February, early March.
It'll probably be around there.
So
I don't.
I think he comes right around, Because if he wants to
Makes me
come back,
nervous.
if well, here's the thing. Thinking if I'm Jamal, I'm thinking, well, if I want to come back and be as best as I can for the playoffs, I want at least 2 months, March and April. So I would come back in sometime in late February. mid
And
to
you have
late
to
February.
think too, when he does come back, he's going to be on a minutes restriction.
Right, right,
You know, maybe like 15 to 20.
right. So
For the
you
first few
ease him,
weeks.
you ease him in for those 2 months and hope that by playoff time he's ready to go. So I think that makes sense. It's just it makes me nervous because you don't want to rush guys back.
No.
But you also don't want a situation where he comes back in April and
He's
then
rusty.
and he's rusty and your playoffs are just washed. Again.
Welcome back, Jamal. All right, round 1. We have the Clippers. And
Yeah.
Kawhi.
So it's like yeah, and you need him. So
Yeah.
if I'm the Nuggets too, if he's ready to go, bring him back late February. But again, but the way he's moving out there and the way he's pushing, I'm like, this dude's coming back in December.
Why didn't you just give him your ACL?
Oh, I have a fine ACL. What do you mean?
Yeah, as long as it's not ankle related, just give him your ACL. Take his bad
You
ACL.
give him yours.
I'll give him my elbow joint. I'll give him both ACLs and my elbows. Do you need that? What do you need? I'll give you my heart. No, that's reserved for Jokic only. Speaking of, my new shirt. Hopefully everybody likes it. Probably that's a little bit better. Low feet. 41st pick. Too fat.
I thought you said low feet. I was what the hell is low feet?
Oh, he does have low feet.
Everyone has a low feet. What do you mean?
That's true.
I hope you.
I
do.
haven't said many unsmart things. That's probably like my third one that I've said in our friendship. So, all right, that's gonna do it for us today. Hopefully, we didn't make Phoenix fans too angry. But the truth hurts sometimes. Sometimes someone has to tell you the truth. All right, and that's what we did today. And hopefully, you accept it. I never thought I'd agree with Rob Parker on anything, but I agree with Rob Parker, and it's unfortunate. But for Brandon Stoll on the other side, I'm Stephen Priest Jr. This has been the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast.